Greetings, traveler.
Hey everyone, Season 13 has been announced and it's going to be another huge reveal video. Let's get right to it. Season 13 will be featuring trinkets, and there are over 70 new trinkets, so many to cover. But before we dive into that, let's talk about the two new mechanics that are also added to this season. The first one is the fodder mechanic. So you can see that these new cards on screen add fodders to your shop. When a fodder is in your shop, when you roll, a fodder gets added to the shop and then it immediately gets eaten and replaced by a different card. So very standard demon stuff where you like to buff the shop, but very fun that you do not really have to invest resources into it. So a little reminiscent of something like an acid rain where you buff the shop and then without having to buy the unit and eat the unit and stuff like that, you just roll and eat. Very fun gameplay, I would say. Anything where it just happens automatic, much more enjoyable than like, oh, I have to like spend 3 gold, buy the card, play the card. Even an Urzel still requires you to, buy a demon, play a demon, sell a demon. Just rolling and getting bigger, quite satisfying. And the other new mechanic is a keyword for dragons. We have Chroma Drakes. A Chroma Drake is one of these 5 dragons that gives you a neat little battle cry. So we can increase the damage on our dragons, the health on our dragons, the damage or health on our tavern spells, or we can get a random 2-cost tavern spell, which is pretty good value generally speaking. You're going to get something like Chef's Choice or Lasso or even Recruit, just adding a little bit more money to your hand. Now, the ones that stand out to me are the ones that increase your tavern spell efficiency, right? So +1 attack or +1 health, because we have seen this in the past with the Sholfin, where that was a battle cry. And then when we have that, oh my lord, there's a lot of multipliers for that, because we have Rylak, then we can use Bran, we can use Titus, we can reborn the Rylak, reborn the Macaw, Windfeeder Macaw, like... So all of a sudden you get like +100 damage on your tavern spells out of nowhere. So if you can make both of those spell drakes golden and put the Rylak between them, I think you could do some really cool stuff with that. So a little scared where we've seen this in the past. Battle cry increasing spell power, scary, risky proposition. So we'll see if that has to be adjusted or not, but that's a little bit of a tip for you guys. That was really strong in the past, so I am definitely going to be trying that on season release to see if it's still busted or not. Other than that, this is just, neat value, battle cry value. Obviously, we're going to want to have a brand on the board for this. And we also have 48 new minions, of which they've already revealed one called Belinda Stonehearth. I think that this was a character in Eltric Valley. I played a lot of WoW, and I think Belinda is one of the NPCs there, but that's on the side. Let me know in the comments, the WoW players, if I got that right or not. This is an interesting one. The spells that you target your friendly minions with cast 2 or 3 times, depending on when it's golden. I don't think that works on AoE stuff like Shiny Ring or Azurite, because they don't target, but maybe that's just an interpretation. But something like a Chef's Choice, for instance, should definitely cast more. So that's a lot of money if you have a golden Belinda. Every time you get a Chef's Choice, you have 3 minions of a type. So you're making money with that. Also, any type of single target buff like the Naga spell that triggers twice. I guess if you have a Belinda, that would trigger 4 times or more, right? If you have a golden one. So more of that spell buffing or value support, and probably some stuff that, we have yet to discover in the new meta. Now we also have 2 new heroes. First up, we have Gen. Very, very fun. On turn 4, this hero gets 2 hero powers. So essentially the Cosmic Duality, which to me is one of the most fun anomalies, because you can really do some crazy synergies there. I always love doing something like Thorim plus Reno, and now you can make like a golden 7-drop or any other like very, very fun interaction. Thorim Voon is also a fun one, because you can copy the 7-drop then. There's definitely some illegal hits there. So seems both good and fun. Now it is worse obviously than the anomaly, because you have to wait until turn 4. But the upside of that, it's a downside, right? But there is an upside as well, where you have a little bit more information about what your board and shop is at that time. So you might be able to decide, oh, can I take a bit of a greedier one because I got a good start, or do I need immediate tempo? Do I have something that already synergizes with a minion in my shop? That kind of stuff. And then the other hero is Mr. Clocksworth. His hero power is essentially false idols. So this is the devs looking at, hey, what are some anomalies that we could turn into hero powers? And I like that. They're getting creative. They're just being like, hey, this is fun. Let's do that here. Now, I would say that Clocksworth, who is essentially, his hero power is false idols, you now only need 2 to make a golden minion, but instead of a triple reward, you get a coin. That was a pretty divisive anomaly, I would say. Well, I'm not sure if divisive is the right word here, but people either liked that a lot or didn't like it a lot. I like it because it's much easier to make golden minions. There are compositions that are very expensive, like for instance, the season we're in right now. If you want to play like Fauna Felbat, man, that's a lot of golden minions you need, right? You want a golden Drakari, and then you want a golden Conjure, you want a golden Fauna, you want a golden Felbat. It's a lot easier to build if you only need 2 copies. So there's certain compositions that are suddenly a lot more achievable. Same thing with like battle cries. If you have a brand on the board and then well, first of all, you only need 2 brands for golden brand. I'm always down for that. But when you have a battle cry, you can put it on your board, and then if you roll the second one, it's already golden. So with a brand, it's like huge value instead of needing 3 battle cries for that. But the downside is you do not get a triple reward. You get a coin instead. So the people that really liked false idols are going to like this hero, and the people that didn't, well, don't pick this hero because you're not getting triple rewards. Now, we also have the announcement that there will be an early access event this time where you can watch your favorite streamers or YouTubers play with the new cards a little bit ahead of time. So perfect time to tune in if you want to know what strategies are going to be strong on day 1, or at least have a bit of an idea. We're never going to fully figure out the meta in like 6 hours, but you have a bit of a head start. So that's going to be on April 9th. That's 9 a.m. Pacific, which usually is like, we just had a time zone change, but I think that's 6 in the evening, my time. So Central European summertime now. So yeah, tune in for that if you want to see the new cards in action ahead of time. Then let's dive into all the new and returning trinkets. Anyway, we have our first new lesser trinket. Ancient Wishbone. Your hero power triggers twice. So there's already some fun stuff you can think of here with something like a Zarek, where you now clone 2 things and you make a golden minion, or Voon, where again you make a golden minion like that. But I wonder if it works on something a little trickier, such as a Murozond or a Buttons. If it works there and you just get like a second Greater Trinket or a second Greater Time Warp Shop, that would be ludicrous. I hope that works. Now it might be a little difficult to code, where it's like, oh, but again, I don't know. I hope it works that way. I will definitely test it out. First, Crystal seems a little bit more like your just standard demon setup. We've also already talked about fodders buffing the tavern. So every time you refresh, you have the minions +2/+2 this turn, and the next turn it becomes smaller again. It works really well with Malchezaar, right? So if you've got a pair of Malchezaars on the board, you roll, you buff your tavern, you buff your fodders, you get a lot of tempo. So highly specific, but this is the case for most trinkets. Most trinkets are pretty specific on, it's good if you have this and not so good if you don't. The Fowler portrait we quickly revealed already in the intro, but essentially this is a way to get more fodders into your tavern. They now also have +2/+2. This seems pretty good tempo, because if we do the math, it's 2/2, so every fodder is 4/4, so you're adding +12/+12. Now, it isn't end of turn because you add them to the shop end of turn, which means that next turn you get the buff. So that is the one downside. You need to have a little bit of tempo up front to be able to get away with essentially not doing anything that turn. And then the turn after, you start getting 12/12, or however much you have buffed the tavern for, because then the fodders will also be bigger. So definitely seems nice. You also just get a Woodland Defiler, so you might now have 2, or you might already have something that puts fodders in the shop, and now we're getting more buffs as well. Turn 6 is the first trinket turn, same as your Time Warps. So if you have something on the board already that provides fodders, then around turn 6 is where you would like level to tier 4, or if you're already on tier 4, you could already roll that turn. Either way, this is about the time where you want fodders, where rolling becomes acceptable. Demonic Tapestry. After you refresh 3 times, the highest tier minion in the tavern costs health instead of gold. So again, we definitely want Soul Rewinder on our board. We also want to have Malchezaar on our board. So lots of refreshes. Buying minions for free seems fun. So very specific, but if you have the setup for it, quite good. Copper Coil gives you +1/+1 whenever you magnetize a minion, and then 2/2 afterwards, and then 3/3, and so on and so on. This seems a bit too early for an effect like that. You're almost never going to have a lot of magnetic generation at that stage of the game, so it seems way too early to hard commit into... Well, I guess you're not hard committing, but if you're not doing anything with magnetics, this is kind of useless. So I don't like these types of trinkets that really push you into a certain direction. I love trinkets that just give you an upside, and then you can work with that upside from there. But this is more of a trinket that really says, okay, well, you probably want to really do magnetics this turn. I'm not a big fan of that. Talking about magnetic generation, Scraper Sticker, you get a random magnetic. I like this a lot more because you could get something like a Quartertron and just make money, and this doesn't really lock you into playing magnetics at all, because you could just sell the magnetic later on for extra cash, use your Quartertrons that you generate here for, again, more money to level and buy other stuff. So much more of a fan of this one than the Copper Coil. Storm Coil Sticker is essentially here. You are Ini now. Have fun. This is highly, highly situational. If you have a lot of Avenges where this could trigger at least once per fight, then sure. If you don't, then I'm not super happy about it. Ooh, this is also very fun. Because of time warps, they can now make trinkets which bring back the most fun time warps. So I really love the direction that Battlegrounds is going in. Feels like the devs are, you know, taking a little bit more chances, just going for fun, lots of just interesting mechanics. Skipper is one of those time warp units that's just fun to play with, so adding it to you as a trinket, I'm a big fan of. We've just played with this, so you guys know when it's good. If you have a setup like you have a lot of 2-drops on your board already, if you can cycle and get rewarded for that. So let's say a great example is if you have Dealer on your board, that's now a tier 4 pirate that gets +2/+2 every time you gain a gold. Fantastic with Skipper, because Skipper is very good at doing a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, you're not getting much done if you're not getting rewarded for doing a lot of stuff. So Dealer is a great unit that does reward you for cycling. Now, there's a specific rule that if you're Gallywix, Syndragosa, Millhouse, or Flurk, I think those 4, you can't get Skipper because they buy minions for cheap already. So it's too good on them. I'm assuming that the Skipper portrait will follow the same rules because, you know, if you're Gallywix and you get Skipper, that's so unfair, you know. So yeah, well, again, assuming that you can get that, but I wouldn't be 100% surprised if that's suddenly possible. Then we have Jailer Sticker. This will give you a Spellcraft, which will stay with you for the rest of the game. So every turn you get to destroy a friendly undead to get a random undead. Pretty much what Jailer Hero Power does. Getting this on turn 6 feels a little bit too late. The real power of Jailer is to get it super early and then make triples from Bonehead or Risen Rider. Now, this depends a little bit on what the undead mechanic for this season is going to be. If there is a lot of rewards for destroying undead during the tavern phase, during the buying phase, stuff like Grave Robber combos, and you make triples like that, or you just get a bunch of death rattle value, then sure, this does go up in value. Urgle Sticker is going to be the new baller type mechanic. You get a Papa or Mama Murgleton when you buy this, and then at the start of each turn, you repeat this. They go up every time you play it, so Battle Cry give your other Murlocs +3 attack, and then we assume the next one is 6, 9, and etc. Then Papa Murgleton, same deal, but for health. So for each Murgleton played, we assume that if we play a Papa Murgleton, the Mama Murgleton will already go up to +6 as well. Now, obviously, Bran, lots of Murlocs on your board. This also feels fun because the trinket will help you make triples, and then once you have the golden one, you get a lot of value there, but you also get the triple reward. So just seems like a fun mechanic. Ballers were also super fun when they added that. So yeah, definitely looking forward to playing some Papa or Mama Murgletons. Scrapsmith Portrait. Scrapsmith will be coming back into the minion pool. After a friendly minion with taunt dies, you get a blood gem, but the trinket now also gives you a permanent blood gem on your Scrapsmiths. Again, highly, highly, highly situational. You already want some gem buffs, you already want a Scrapsmith. I think if you have neither of those, this seems unpickable. But trinkets quite often are highly situational, so yeah, if you have the right setup for this, you can go for it. Jewelry Box. Okay, so you get 3 blood gems, but they have a specific effect. They give Taunt, Divine Shield, or Reborn. So Divine Shield Reborn, amazing. Taunt, very underwhelming. Now, sometimes you want to taunt the Piper or something, so sure. But yeah, Divine Shield and Reborn, those are really the ones you're after. They give a Quillbore that, so no, you know, Reborn Leroy or Shield on whatever. But still, if you have quite a few Quillbore on your board, this can be a fun setup. Again, Reborn, Piper, Shield on your Scrapsmith, and then add some taunts. So seems interesting in the right setup. And obviously at the start of each turn, you get 3 more of those. Stegodon coming back as well. You get a Stomping Stegodon, and the start of a combat, your 2 leftmost beasts get Divine Shield. So Stegodon was really like a combo type setup where this might not look good at first glance, but the effect stacks. So if your first Stegodon attacks, now let's say you have 2 Stegodons on the board, your second Stegodon will not do +4 attack to everything, it will give +8 attack, and then it will give the rally again. So if you then have a minion behind that, it will have all those rally attacks already, so that will also do 8, and then you get 2 more rallies on the next one, so then the next one will be 16, and then 32, and you see how quickly that goes up. So Wind Fury, very, very good, so you want your Scarab on this. Reborn is usually a bit of a bait here, because if you reborn your Stegodon, you will just put +4 attack instead of the however much your rally is already up to. So you definitely want to just keep putting the rally on the next minion and then attacking with that minion. So Reborn, generally not great to put that in the front. You can definitely still put some Reborns in the back. And then Wind Fury. Wind Fury is huge, so that's where the Divine Shield really comes into play. You can use Scarab to Wind Fury those beasts in the front, and they will have a shield, so they will survive and stack up this rally very quickly, dealing lots and lots of damage. Also works quite well with stuff like Mana Saber in the back, where you are now, like let's say they kill that, you have a bunch of tokens, you attack with something, all those tokens get a bunch of attack, all those tokens have the rally, and they just keep propagating that rally. Quite fun if it works out, but it requires a lot of pieces to get the setup going. Now we have Sous Chef Sticker. You can use your hero power an extra time each turn, and after you use your hero power, you gain a gold. So essentially, the next hero power, if it's free, you gain a gold, and if it's 1 gold, it's free, and so on and so on. So if you have something like a Terran or a Lich King, I can see this being nasty. Double Lich King hero power, double Terran hero power, value, or just like strength during the combat, so super nasty. And maybe even something cool with Denathrius where you get a certain quest reward. I'm not sure if it's going to actually work on the quest reward or if it would only work on the actual Denathrius hero power, in which case it doesn't really do anything. But there's some cases where this could be very, very fun, very cool. I think the 2 mentioned are already nice. But even something like Sylvanas, being able to fish for 2 minions, making triples, making good copies. So yeah, on the right hero, super fun. Magician's Top Hat reminds me of that trinket that would give you 3 4-drops. So sometimes you just need to fill your board a little bit, add some stuff to your board. This will do that. Now, you do pay 6 gold and you get 6 gold back, but quite often one of those minions is like, let's say a Shell Collector, and then you get a coin there, or a Elemental and you make some money here, or even a 3-drop that somehow gives you some economy. You'll have some leftover 1-drops that you can sell from your board. You can sell the 1-drops you get from the Top Hat. So I don't think this is bad. I think this will be okay when you need to fill out your board, when you have, you know, let's say some weaker token type minions left and you don't have a huge board. You can just get the Top Hats, sell whatever is required, and then level to tier 4, and now you have a full board. Orb of the Unknown is just, you know, random. Get a random Lesser Trinket. You can't discover it. It's just like, here you go. Get a 0 cost Lesser Trinket. Enjoy. Sometimes terrible, sometimes amazing. Because you can't discover it, I think the average outcome here is bad, because we talked about how a lot of trinkets are specific to your situation. So if you're getting a random, let's say you're getting like a Scrapsmith Lesser Trinket and you don't have any gem buffs or Scrapsmiths on your board, it's like, you know, basically pointless. Then we have Lens Case. You get a duplicating lens, and you get a duplicating lens. And you, okay. At the start of every 2 turns, repeat this. So you keep getting it back. The thing that immediately pops out to me, and then obviously the duplicating lens is on screen, you get to copy a minion from tier 3. So if you have something like Fish, that's quite good. Sneed Buddy, maybe. Curator, starting minion, right? quite interesting there. I guess it's Sneed's starter minion because Sneed also has a buddy. Yeah, so if you have a specific minion on your board, or if you can use this to make a triple from a strong 3-drop, that could also be fine. So I think certain heroes automatically are highly or are more inclined to take this. And then sometimes you'll just have a specific 3-drop on your board where you say, you know what, that's actually not bad. I can use that, get a triple, and then, you know, get some more value later on. Kaleidoscope. Discover a tier 7 minion and lock it in your hand for 2 turns. That seems good. That's kind of like Thorim, where turn 8, you'll get a 7-drop. Sure. Largira, Beatboxer, heck, even a Sanders, right? Make a golden minion. So yeah, that seems solid. I'd be down for that. Egg of the End Times Portraits. So this will be a new minion. You get 2 of them, and after this is in your hand for 2 turns, choose a tier 6 dragon to hatch into. Okay, so man, some people are going to put this on the board, and I'm not ruling it out that I won't do that at some point. But yes, this very specifically says after this is in your hand for 2 turns. So gotta keep it in your hand. But that seems really good as well. On turn 8, I will get like 2 evokers or something, because you discover there aren't that many tier 6 dragons. There's the amalgams that dilute the pool, but generally speaking, it won't be that hard to hit a specific 6-drop because it's a type 6-drop. That seems good. Like just like double evoker, turn 8. Let's go, right? Definitely, we have a comp, we have direction. Yeah, I'll mess around with this for sure. Water Wheel. After you play an elemental, get a random tavern spell. We had a trinket that was like a lesser trinket, and you get to discover a spell every turn. That's so much better because I get the spell that I want because it's discoverable, and I don't have to play an elemental for it. And this only says twice per turn, so the upside is that I can get 2 spells, but they're random. So, you know, you're getting apples, you're getting like buff your Divine Shield minions when you have no Divine Shield minions on the board, that kind of stuff, right? And you have to play an elemental for this, so you're not even getting the full value every turn. If you want to level and you don't have elementals, that's tough, you're getting nothing. I don't think that makes sense, given that we had that trinket, which was just like discover a spell in the past, which was good, don't get me wrong, that was a solid trinket, but I can't seem to get excited for 2 random tavern spells if I play 2 elementals that turn. Lightning in a Bottle. After the tavern is refreshed, give the stats of the highest attack minion to the lowest. This seems like it was designed for fodders, where you roll a big minion, and then the fodder comes in the shop, and then the big minion gets on top of the fodder, and then the fodder gets eaten. That's what I would assume happens. I don't know if that's 100% the interaction, but that's likely what this was intended for, seeing as it's a demon and elemental trinket. And then obviously elementals are all about buffing the shop, so you can use this to get a very large minion where you have, let's say you have like buffs to the whole tavern, then you'll suddenly get 2 big minions, right? Give the stats of the highest attack to the lowest. I guess you'll get 1, right? So it'll move the stats from the highest attack minion on top of the lowest one, which if your whole tavern is buffed, that means you just get 1 big guy. So sure. Highly specific though, right? I think that it's more of a thing you take if you have some fodder synergy already. Leapers! They're continuing with this. This is what I did talk about earlier already. It's very fun that they're doing this. They're essentially looking at the fan favorites, which, you know, Leaper is definitely part of that, of, you know, what did people love buying in Time Warps? Let's just keep those minions around and have some fun with it. So Time Warp Skipper, Time Warp Leaper. Yeah, for 1 gold, you get Leaper. Sure, why not? Mama Bear sticker. That's just some pure tempo. Whenever you summon a beast, give it 4/4. If your board has beast summons on it, then sure. Again, situational, right? That's what a lot of trinkets are. Yeah, that'll win you some fights, because not only does it trigger when you play a beast from your hand on the board, it also triggers when a beast summons in combat. And because it's Mama Bear sticker, it can't get sniped, so you'll always get full value, at least from the buff. You know, you might miss some summons if you have, like, let's say a Titus, but by that point, this doesn't matter that much anymore. So yeah, again, good beast tempo if you have the setup for it. Ophidian Staff. Spellcraft, similar like the Jailer sticker, so you get to do this every turn for the rest of the game. You get to reborn a beast and give it 4/4. Sure, right? Or quite often we're looking for scarabs to reborn stuff. If you have the setup for it already, why not? And then you're leaning beast from there, or at least leaning something that uses Macaw and Rylak, and then you'll always have reborn Macaw, reborn Rylak. So sure, why not? Terran probably likes this too, where your Terran, you get this, you automatically have a reborn, you can hero power the reborn minion and get extra value. Bubble Crown costs 0 gold. Once you cast 10 spells, your tavern spells give an extra 3/3. So that's quite a long-term investment type stuff. So this is generally only something you're taking if you're strong and you can afford to wait on the payoff. Because other trinkets, like let's say the Mama Bear trinket, is immediate tempo, immediate payoff. You're gonna immediately feel that effect. This is, well, you have to cast 10 spells, which you probably don't even do in 1 turn, so maybe 2 or 3 turns. And then after that, you need to have tavern spells that buff your board. Now, there are probably going to be some Naga mechanics that take advantage of this, but still, right? You have to be strong to be able to do this, or at the very, very least, have some setup that allows you to cast a lot of spells to take advantage of this early on. Cowrie Necklace, tavern spells that give stats cost 1 less. I'm not a fan of these types of setups because most of the time if you do tavern spell buffing, it's because you're generating tavern spells. It's really hard to just roll and buy tavern spells that buff. You're pretty much always looking to generate a bunch of them and then use them for buffs instead. So not a huge fan of this trinket. Tide Razor is a good example of a Naga that can give you some Bubble Crown value early on. So the Portraits is going to give you a Tide Razor. So we have the golden one here, but the regular one is cast on N adjacent, right? So you'll get 1 Shifting Tide to your hand for sure. And if you have any other Nagas that cast spells in combat, so let's say you have a second Tide Razor already, that will give you like a double on there, which then with Bubble Crown will give you some more value. If you can trigger it 1 time, you'll already get the extra buff on your tavern spells, which does a lot of work on Shifting Tide because it triggers twice. And then Transcribing Typewriter, you get an extra copy of the next 2 minions you buy. That just seems like a neat little thing for 1 gold. You get to make triples with this, right? If you already have a minion and then you buy it, you get a triple straight away. You can also just get a really good 4-drop and then get 2 of those. So it seems like a very flexible, neutral trinket. These are the ones that you're generally speaking taking quite often, right? Like maybe Transcribing Typewriter is not going to end up being that good, but I talked about that trinket earlier that just lets you discover a spell every turn. These are not situational. These are like any board with any type could take those. And because of that, you end up taking these neutral type trinkets quite often. So don't be afraid to do that. You do not have to commit your direction on turn 6. It is actually preferable for you to not do so. So yeah, these neutral type trinkets, generally speaking, not bad to take in. And then we have Conch Portraits. You get a cloning conch at the start of every 2 turns. Repeat this. So it's some okay value. It could hit Tad early. I would say this is mainly interesting if you went to tier 4 early. So on turn 5 and on turn 6, this rolls around and there's a Bream counter in the shop. Then this is wonderful because then you're getting some tempo. You're getting recurring value, seems okay then. Other than that, not super excited about this one. I'll have to try it out and see. Maybe the recurring value later on really sells me on it. Something I do not need to be sold on, however, is Chromatic Tear. Well, I need to be sold on the fact that it's real because it's a lesser trinket. I'm paying 3 gold for this and I get all 5 Chroma Drakes. So, it costs you about 6 gold to level, or 7. So let's say worst case scenario, you curved like standard curve. It's not great, but it costs you 7 gold to level. You buy this thing for 3, you have 8, that's 5 gold left. You just have to sell 2 things off your board and you have 5 things in your hand. So you can very, very easily level. This is not one of those trinkets you take like, oh, it's a heavy investment. Maybe like, no, you can easily level. And then you play the 3 Chroma Drakes that don't buff your board first. Then you play like the 5 health and then you play the 5 attack. And then all the dragons that aren't the 5 attack or 5 health guy have +10/+10 on them. That's like stupid tempo. You get value from the thing that gives you a 2-cost spell. Your spells also give +1/+1 because why not? Let's just throw that in the mix as well. Oh, and I basically earned 2 gold by clicking this because it cost me 3 gold. So yeah, good. I don't know, man. This seems like tempo central. You get value. You might already have a Chroma Drake, now you have a pair. You might have a pair of Chroma Drakes, now you have a triple. It's just like, yeah, I mean, what else can I say? This seems busted and it will very, very, very likely go up in cost very quickly. Unless I have just completely forgotten how to judge cards. I hope not. All right, next. We have Pocket Cyclone. You cast Easterly Winds twice, and at the start of each turn, cast it again. So Easterly Winds was changed to buff a random minion. So it no longer goes on the right side, but every time you've refreshed the tavern and the random buffs happen, it's always on the same minion. So it's the same as buffing the right side. There's always going to be one big minion, but instead of being able to predict it's going to be on the right, it's going to be a little bit all over the place. They're doing that because Acid Rain is out. It doesn't really matter if it's going to be right side. And right now there's also a little bit of use you can do where you can sort of put something on the right, buy the spell and freeze, and then technically it's a refresh and the thing will get buffed. So maybe they also want to counter that. It's not like a big thing, but you know, I'm just trying to think, why wouldn't they keep it on the right? I guess my main thought is like they're removing Acid Rain anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter anymore. Yeah, I mean, if you have anything that benefits from having bigger stuff in the shop, that's fine. And you can even just take this and then level. Kind of hard to level roll and get immediate value, so you do want something like any kind of like shop eating, like having the enforcer on the board, the fire guy that eats the biggest minion from the shop. That's like a no-brainer. Then it's quite nice. We have Sunken Anchor. You get 2 random bounties, and at the start of each turn, repeat this. Well, if you get the money and the Chef's Choice bounty, then yes. The other ones, it's okay. I mean, I'm comparing everything to getting 5 Chroma Drakes and everything sucks. So it's because it's 3 gold. It's the same thing, right? It's like, oh, I get 2 bounties and then 1 more, or like 5 dragons, front-loaded tempo, front-loaded value. All right. Anyways, yeah, I mean, it's definitely pickable, right? Because it's a source of extra value. We do like that in trinkets. Not bad, not bad. If you somehow have something that already benefits from it, so let's say you have some extra spell power, let's say you have, I mean, a Proud Privateer on turn 6 is not happening, right? So yeah, okay, it's okay. Then we have a bunch of returning trinkets as well. I'm not going to be spending that much time on these because we've already played with them. But for those of you guys who are new to trinket meta, I'll still do like a very quick cursory review of, you know, what we're getting and maybe some tips and tricks on how to use it. Automaton seems to be coming back. This is okay if you already have an automaton on the board because they get better the more you've summoned on it. If you don't have an automaton, I don't really recommend taking this one. This is also quite nice if you're Terran or Lich King, anything that helps you summon more automatons. Innkeeper Stein is a good example of one of those neutral trinkets you can take. Now you get I-tier minions. Sure, that's totally fine. Goldenizer, I actually like this one quite a bit. It also works with Drakari. So then you get 2 Goldenizers and you can golden your Drakari, and now you're getting 3 Goldenizers and so good. Yeah, quite fun, but also greedy. So you have to be strong in order to take this. Staff of the Scourge. There were some shenanigans with this last time where you could go like infinite if you have like Reborn Mana Saber. I can't remember what it was, but it's basically a gimmick for the most part. But there were some nasty combos where you could make like Reborn Leroy's with this basically. But very complicated, not beginner friendly at all. So most of the time I would just avoid this because it's quite expensive for 5 gold. Mystery Cube, that's a super fun one. You get to choose from 2 new lesser trinkets, so you're basically Panda for trinkets, which is great because oftentimes you have a trinket that's really good on 1 turn and then you don't really want it the next turn, so now you can just squeeze the value, move on to the next trinket. Generally quite a good and fun trinket to play with. Pendant, quite an investment, but in the right circumstance, very strong. So you have to not have trash minions on your board. So this is fantastic for someone who, let's say, power leveled and the board is like 1 3-drop and 1 4-drop. Oof, that's perfect. Because now you're guaranteed getting a pair, you're guaranteed getting a 3 or a 4, and then you can even curate your board a little bit going into the next fight to force a good triple, and then maybe you'd copy the triple word and so on. Not an easy trinket to play with. You have to have a little bit of insight on how you're going to plan your next few turns, because if your board is just going to be 7 minions and 5 of them are horrible to copy, do not take this. This will not be good on average if you just have a bunch of random minions. You have to curate your board, and therefore you need to have a bit of an insight on which turn you need to play what minions and how you can do that without dying. But if you can do that, quite good. Very fun to play with. This is fine. It's like buff pirates, sure, whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Tabby, after 6 friendly minions die, get a random beast. Yeah. On Avenge boards, we have like Reborn, Undeads and stuff. Sure, let's do it. Yogg, quite expensive for what it is. Most of the time, I wouldn't recommend this, but yeah, it's Yogg. So hey, if you want to roll the dice, it's quite fun. Bobblehead, surprisingly good. You get 2 golds when you do this. I love this for when I am tier 4 on turn 5, and then on turn 6 the trinkets roll around. I take Bobblehead, I get 2 extra gold to spend on turn 4, and all my rolls are 3s and 4 drops. Quite fun, quite nice in that scenario. You do have to be careful that if you have a build that requires you later on to get something like Elementals or whatever else is on tier 2, Ballers, right? You're not getting any of those. So do a quick little check, be like, well, am I going to care? And if you're not, then yeah, this is quite nice. I don't mind taking this at all. Baleful Incense, quite an investment. You really have to have like good undeads on your board already. Like you don't want to take this and then roll for undeads. You basically want to have a Nubrak on your board already, and like preferably a handless. So it's quite a lot. It's quite a steep requirement to play this. Taragosa sticker, not good. Generally, it's just too awkward, too specific. Yeah, don't like it. Treasure map. That's one of those neutral trinkets that you can take. Hey, if you don't like the rest, just take this and then gain 2 gold 2 turns from now and have a big turn with that. It's totally fine. Bloodbound Earrings works with gems, so if you have a lot of gem generation, that's a lot of fun. But again, highly specific, right? You already need to be leaning Quillbore, you need to have some gem buffs, you probably want to have something like Prophet of the Boar already, a way to generate spells. So if you have that setup, it's good, it's fun. If not, I wouldn't really touch it. And then we have the Elemental portrait. You get a Elemental, your Elemental's give an extra 2/2. Yep, that does exactly what it says it does. So if you have some reason to shop buff, if you have, let's say, maybe like a pair of Elementals ready on the board, and then you maybe like get Rylak, or you already have some demons or fodder synergy or anything along those lines, sure. If not, it's quite... You don't really want to take this and then like, oh, now I'm going to do shop buff stuff, because usually that'll be a bit too slow. You'll take too much damage while setting it up. All right, let's talk about the returning Lesser Trinkets. But before I do, sorry for how this looks. This is not our usual polish, and that is because due to unforeseen circumstances, we only had a very, very short amount of time to work on this entire section of the video. So I hope you can forgive us. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll do our very best that next time we have the usual polish for the whole video. Eternal Portrait, you get an Eternal Knight, so yeah, this one's fun. For 5 gold, this is a little steep, but if you already have an Eternal Knight on your board, this is quite solid. You have to sell some stuff off your board to still be able to level to 4 if you're on tier 3 for the trinket turn, which is pretty common. That's not bad, actually. But yeah, you don't have to sleep on this one. This is good tempo, and you don't have to be Eternal Knights the whole game. You can just transition out of this. Calligraphy set, Avenge 4. Yeah, this one is solid from what I remember. 2 gold. If you have like some stuff like Bonehead on your board, you can milk the Avenge. If you can get 2 triggers of this, it's quite solid. It's like Piper, but for health, and that's quite nice. Token of the Old Gods, yeah, I like this one too. Very flexible, it's a neutral trinket. You get the spellcraft every turn, and then you get to upgrade a minion. You could throw this in the tavern, you could throw this on your board, right? So very flexible. It's usually very nice to play something like a Rodeo, get the get the spell from the Rodeo, and then evolve the Rodeo in a 6-drop. That's like it's very nice value play. Book of Medivh is super solid. Also, you know, can't really go wrong with this one. Good neutral trinket. You discover a tavern spell every turn. It only costs 2 gold. What's not to like? Wonderful trinket to take. Excuse me for that. Actually, not even sure if we can cut that out or not. All right, that's fine. It's a different experience. Just me and you, YouTube. No editor in between us. All right, Azeroth Model Globe at the start of every 2 turns. Gain 1 gold. Yeah, okay, so this one they actually had the buff, because this cost gold at some point, and it's like, okay, we'll make it free, and be like, it still sucks. We'll pay you, please take our trinket. And I was like, okay. That's funny when they do that. Yeah, so you kind of only take this if you're doing really well. If you're not doing so hot, then it's tough, because it's 2 turns of nothing. Now it does cost 0 gold, right? So you can buy something from the shop and level, but still a little bit of a riskier proposition just because you're not getting anything for 2 turns. So like by default, if you're losing, this is kind of a no pick. Colorful Compass is another one of those solid trinkets. It says Naga here, but it'll be anything, right? So usually if you have a majority beasts, this will give you a beast and then get another one every turn. Again, one of those can't go wrong with it. Solid, 2 gold. Yeah, very good. Tiger Carving, it's a bit early for this one. Turn 6. Whenever a friendly minion takes damage, give a random friendly minion to attack permanently. Yeah, I mean, you have to have some like self-damage setup for this to really be worth it, from my memory. Keychain, this is for Taragosa essentially, or poets, but that early usually don't have it, so Yeah, you kind of go all in on trying to make a big minion and then taunt it, and then when it dies, it gives the stats. And then like you kind of leapfrog the stats like that, but it's weird, but because then you have to taunt the other one, and it's basically a bit of a hassle. But if you have the setup for it for Taragosa, sure. Cathedral, another one of those solid neutral. Well, it's not really neutral. They got the Naga on it right now, but it feels more neutral. It was offered quite often. But yeah, the first spell you cast each turn casts an extra time, so careful investment over confidence, right? Even a coin, you can use it. So it's a little tricky. I think I prefer the one that discovers a spell, just because you're guaranteed to get value from that one. With the Cathedral, you need to have a spell in your hand. So sometimes it's awkward if you want to level and you want to get value off this. Like, I don't have a spell, right? You never have that with the one that just discovers a spell for you. Nomi sticker, it's a bit early, right? It costs only 1 gold. I know, please, Shady, take it. It's like, no, chat, no, we can't do it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this. Very rarely, like maybe with like Celemental in the shop and a Felemental or something, but even then, probably not. Coffin, 5 gold. That's a lot. After you cast a Tavern spell, you're in dead of +1 attack this game. Probably for 5 gold, it's a bit early to commit to that. That's a big investment, and you don't know if you're going to get a good setup to play undead, so yeah, usually I don't love this one, but you know, if you can make it work, it's great. Like basically if you commit undead and it works out, then you know, it's all good. Then you have a good trinket. Black Tree, you discover a Death Rattle minion and then triggers an extra time. Yeah, that one's solid. Rylak, any kind of value Death Rattle. You know, you don't have to use the one you discover. You can just put another one down or taunt another one, and that one then triggers 2 times. So you can use this later on for, you know, like Goldrin or whatever, or higher tier Death Rattle. Oil can, yeah, another one of those. That's just solid neutral. You do this, becomes cheaper to tier, and then you can go to tier 5 early. And then you usually just stay on tier 5 for a while until going to 6 is almost free, and then you go to 6. So it's, yeah, decent for sure. Bleeding Heart, after 9 friendly minions die, get a random undead. I think this used to summon it too, right? I mean, yeah, if you have the good Avenge setup, sure. 3 gold, that's fine. It's kind of like Ini for undead, but undead are a bit better, well, quite a bit better at triggering this than mechs, because mechs don't really have like replicating menace or so anymore. Mech horrors also not. So yeah, pretty solid. Get a fish, yeah. 1 gold, get a fish. Again, I mean, don't take it if fish is not good on your board, but if you got some death rattles, you got a good shop, right? You can make it work. Sure, absolutely. Gauntlets. The tavern always has 7 cards. Ooh, did they add that? I'm actually not sure. So the minions in the tavern always have 3/3. That used to be a thing. Maybe they added it like at the end of the previous trinket meta and I forgot. But that makes it a bit more interesting, right? Now you can do like infinite spellbat stuff. That's always fun. If you have a setup with fodders, for instance, then sure. You get to buff the tavern and then your fodders consume and you get some value, sure. Goblin wallets, oil every turn. What's not to like? Another one of those trinkets that is win more, but not as much because it only costs 1 gold and it already does something next turn. You already have 1 extra gold. The turn after that, you get 2 extra gold, etc. So yeah, very highly picked trinket for me. I tend to do pretty well with it, but again, that's no surprise for any regular viewers of the channel. It's like, oh, Shady likes increasing his gold. That's crazy. All right, Rewinder Portrait. You get a Soul Rider, you get a Wrath Weaver, and your Soul Riders also gain attack. It's one of those like, oh my god, I really need a Soul Rewinder. I guess I'll take it kind of things, because for a whole lesser, like just compare these two, right? One is like, oh, you get a lot of gold for the whole rest of the game. The other one is, here's a 1 and a 2 drop, right? It's like, this is, you make a tempting offer here. So yeah, but hey, sometimes you got to take it. Sometimes just like, well, I really need a Soul Rewinder, so I guess I'll just grab it. Dragon Wing Glider. Whenever you play a card, give friendly dragon 3/1. Yeah, one of those tempo picks that works pretty well with Whelp Smuggler. If you gotta do it, you gotta do it. You prefer not to do it, but sometimes just gotta stabilize. You have like blood gems, those are cards. Coins, those are cards. So you could suddenly pop off, make your board quite a bit stronger, stop taking damage. Holy Mallet, start a combat. Give your left and rightmost minion divine shields. Yeah, one of those like 4 golds, bit awkward. Permanent shield on Taragosa, right? That's about it. Usually a hard pass for me. Phrase book, yeah, with the right setup, sure. If you already have a dire muck or something to pull something from your hand, or I don't know, just whatever. It's like more fun for Syndragosa, Millhouse, Gallywix, although I don't know if it's allowed on those heroes right now. It's been such a long time. Definitely have memories of doing this on Millhouse, but they have made some rules for time warp cards to be excluded on certain heroes, so I don't know if they've done that for certain trinkets as well. Lucky Tabby, after 6 friendly minions die, get a random beast. Yeah, with an Avenge setup, short, you just grab this, get some value. Maybe the beast helps you stop taking damage. Totally fine. I have Dalaran. Yeah, this is like when you have neutrals on your board. It's highly specific, but sometimes you have a bunch of neutrals and you're like, you know what? I'll take it. But the issue with this, it's hard to keep a lot of neutrals on your board because quite often you want to put some strategy on your board, and that generally involves having a type. So this is good for a couple turns, and after that, it's like, eh. Spell Powered Wrench. After you play a magnetic minion, get a random Tavern spell. 4 gold. Situational. It's hard to have magnetic generation already at that point. Usually a pass for me. Gilded Anchor. End of turn, give you golden minions 3/3. Yeah, I mean, probably not, but if for whatever reason I've got a bunch of goldens on turn 6, okay, I guess. Buy your Greater Trinket next turn instead of turn 9. Okay, yeah, this one was fun. 0 gold, and next turn you pop off. Very, very fun with something like Fishing Rod, where you're getting tier 7s. Super fun with that one. And there's a few other Greater Trinkets where you get them early. It's very, very fun. So if anything, this is like a higher RNG pick, because if you get certain trinkets that are really nice early, you're high rolling that, but you are giving up a whole Lesser Trinket. So do keep that in mind. Enigmatic Headstone. At the end of your turn, your undeads have +1 attack, wherever they are. Nah, you can get better value out of other ones for sure. Ooh, Splinter. This one's super good. When you have 15 gold, you get a random tier 5. So usually the way you play this is you have stuff like Gambler and Tad on your board, and you just hold it until you can sell all of them and then go up to 15 gold. You get the golden minion in your hand, and then you level. Do not sell all the shit and then level before you have to 15, because then it doesn't proc. And I'm telling you that not because I've messed that up in the past, definitely not, but because it's a perfectly reasonable thing one could do, okay? I'm just telling you, I'm just warning you. But yeah, this one's good because you're very, very likely going to be able to level to tier 4 when you pop this. And then you get to discover a 5-drop, and you have a random golden 5-drop. And in some rare cases, you're on tier 3 and you spend 1 turn just loading up on gold. So ideally is like the shop has 2 gamblers. You're like, oh my God, right? So then turn 6, you buy 2 gamblers, and then turn 7, you just sell everything. You level twice after going up to 15 gold, and then you play your golden 5, you discover a 6. So that's the dream scenario. Rare, but it has happened to me on occasion. Baleful Incense, start of combat, give your left and rightmost undead reborn. I mean, highly specific, right? Some boards you're like, whoa, that is perfect here. And it's like, sure, go for it. But most of the time, 4 gold overpriced. Shrine of Evolution. Now this one's fun. So this is great if you've been playing lots of stuff like Elemental, River Skipper. Your board is like 7 units. All of it is like low tier trash. Then you're like, full board of 4 drops, let's go. So again, fun, and in certain situations definitely good. Yeah, don't be afraid to take this. But yeah, I mean, if you're like 3 minions on your board and one of them's a 20/20 because you buffed it, no, okay. But yeah, if you have like a full board of low tier minions, very, very nice. War Drum, 1 battle cry each turn, triggers 2 extra times. Usually a skip. It's a bit early, but again, it depends on what you have on your board. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's pretty good here. Like, for instance, your Shadow Walk. And then you're like, oh, now I can trigger this every time, right? So, but most of the time, no. Zaragoza sticker, left and rightmost dragons permanently keep bonus. Usually a pass, too situational, too specific. Macaw portraits, super solid. You get a macaw, it also triggers your leftmost battle cry. Fantastic with Rylak, because now it triggers the death rattle of the Rylak, which triggers the battle cry, but then the macaw also individually triggers the battle cry. Stacks with Bran, just, you know, very nice. If you have any kind of value for it already on your board, pretty sweet to take. Battlecruiser portraits, you basically become Raynor. They did buff Raynor, they did buff a lot of the spells, so maybe it's better now. I'll have to try it. This is one of those I'll have to see, because they buffed a lot of the Raynor spells to keep up with the power creep, the inflation. Pilgrim sticker, yeah, this one is solid. Again, if you have Rewinder, let's say there's a demon in the shop, you take this, you have Rewinder on the board, you take the free demon, you sell something, you level to tier 4, not bad. And then from that moment on, you can just buy a free demon every turn. So again, in the right situation, not bad. Elemental portraits, you get a Elemental to start of each turn, get another. Yeah, this one's solid because you just use this to triple and then you get a 6-drop. So you take it for 5 gold. You probably stay on tier 3 that turn, although in some rare cases you're able to level to 4 if you really have a lot of money. but most of the time you stay on tier 3 and you get a Sally. Then the next turn you get another Sally, you level to 4. The turn after that you get another Sally, you level to 5. You play the golden Salamental, then you triple into a 6-drop, and then the turn after that you can sell your golden Salamental, get 2 droplets, sell your next Salamental that you got from this one, and it's another 6-drop. So be careful not to sell the droplets from the initial triple, because it will triple the turn after. Droplets are also a triple, so quite good if you can curve the way I just described. Sacrificial altar, yeah, the ultimate YOLO. Let's go. Everything's gotta go. You very, very similar to the evolution shrine. In the cases where evolution shrine is good, sacrificial altar is also good. So you have a lot of low tier trash on your board. Sell it all, cash out, and then go to tier 5 and have some fun. Like, for real, that's how you play this. And it might seem completely irresponsible, but it's actually fine. Again, considering you actually have 7 units on your board and it was nothing like amazing in there. So you just sell it, go to 5, have some fun. Binoculars also solid, sort of the opposite here. This is more the responsible pick, right? Oh, I get 3-4 drops, I get to stabilize a little bit, but solid, definitely something I take all the time. Flippers, I don't really take this one. After you cast a tavern spell, give the leftmost minion in your hand 3/3. So it's a bit awkward. The phrase book is much easier because you're just cycling a bunch of stuff and buffing. Archaic Scroll, after you cast 6 spells, you get a random Naga. Yeah, very fun. Again, spells, that's coins, that's gems, that's spellcraft. So this goes quite hard if you already have a bunch of spellcraft. Statuette, you get 3 random spellcraft. At the start of each turn, you get 3 more. This was okay when you had the coin spellcraft and you had like Reborn for value on the coin Naga. Now, I don't know if we have enough spellcraft to go for this. Intuitively, no, but it's highly dependent on the spellcraft pool. I'll put it that way. Gold pendant, you make a random for a golden. Yeah, again, highly dependent on what's on your board, right? Sometimes you just have a bunch of 3-drops because you went 3 on 3 and you're like, oh, this is pretty good. I'm just making golden 3-drops. Other times you had a normal curve and there's a bunch of random stuff on your board and you make a golden 1-drop and you're like, not really worth it. Auric Offering. At the end of each turn, give your leftmost minion 3/2. Repeat for each friendly golden minion. No, I don't remember taking this one. This does not, yeah, not a fan. Next. Grifter Portrait. Ding, ding, ding. I'm a fan of this one. This one's really fun. So you get a doubloon Grifter, and the first pirate you buy each turn is free. So doubloon Grifter is after you buy 4 pirates, you cast Strike Oil, basically. You increase your maximum gold. So yeah, very, very fun minion to play with. And also, just like every first pirate you buy is free. One of those trinkets, very comparable to the Salamental Portrait, where very likely you're not going to level to tier 4 on that turn, but then you sort of stabilize and come back afterwards because your economy just starts picking up because you're buying stuff for free and you're triggering the doubloon Grifter. Common thread, so this one's for duos. Pass a copy of the first card you buy each turn. Yeah, that is solid, right? Like passes in general are just very nice in duos. So, and this one gives you some good value. Same with this one, portal in a bottle, start of turn, get another very solid value. This one I don't really play enough duos for. Like in the beginning when duos released, Orchestra was broken because you could just trigger it over and over and over, and it wasn't. I think now Orchestra is when you play it or so, but it used to be when you triggered a battle cry. So yeah, it was insane. These days I don't play enough duos. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if this is good or not. Our first new Greater Trinket is a fan favorite, Wisdom Ball Supply. You get knockoff Wisdom Ball, and at the start of each turn, repeat this. I loved it when this spell was in the game. Super fun. Your next 2 refreshes are helpful. So basically, that's a chromie roll. We just come out of a meta where there were some chromies here and there in the buddy anomaly. Yeah, this can just completely whiff. It can give you a board full of 1-drops, or maybe like 2-drops or 3-drops or whatever. But sometimes it's like, oh, were you looking for a brand? Here's a brand and a Titus and a Drakari. Oh, here's like a 7-drop. Here's a golden minion. Here's a copy of your board. So quite fun. I will definitely be grabbing this because it just makes for very memorable games when the Wisdom Ball really works with you. The Fowler Portrait. So we have the big one here. It's just an upgrade from the lesser. You now have bigger fodders. I mean, you still only just get a Woodland Defiler, and your fodders now have 4/4. I feel like the lesser one's a lot better than the greater one. I think for a greater one, I probably want a little bit more value than this. Urzel sticker basically means you have an Urzel without needing to have it on the board. That's what the sticker thing does. Sure, if you have a big shop, then you slam an Urzel sticker. Whenever you play a demon, your board gets bigger. That's fine. So there's a trade-off here. The advantage is you are no longer so vulnerable to scam because your buffs go on your whole board. The downside is your minions are significantly smaller than what the Urzel would be. So usually when you have an Urzel on your board, you make 1 or 2 huge Urzels and then you add Scam and Scam Protection. And that is stronger than just spreading out the stats, but spreading out the stats is safer because you don't just lose to a single Leroy. So there's definitely a trade-off here, but you can still just play this and still make 1 or 2 big guys by targeting it with Mind Mugs and such. Spellburnt Ledger. After your hero takes damage, your tavern spells give an extra 1/1 this turn. Quite specifically for either Wrathweaver setup or Malchezaar or Percussionist. So if you have that setup where you can take damage, you can then use the tavern spells to buff the shop afterwards. So first you take a bunch of damage, then your spells give an extra, let's say 5/5 or so, and then you cast like the staff to buff the shop, and now your shop is permanently bigger. Quite the synergy, right? So you need a lot of pieces there, but if you have them, then cool. Sure, let's do it. Flaming Portrait. You get a Flaming Enforcer, and then whenever it triggers, it also gives stats to the neighbors. Okay. So if we can make a big tavern and play Drakari, this could be interesting. Because it says stats to the neighbors, so that does not say neighboring demons, right? So you can even buff the Drakari with this or so. Or a Cleave. So synergy here. Make a big shop, get a golden Enforcer, get a golden Drakari, and boom! Big end of turn procs. Because the Enforcer will do triple, right? Sorry, double, and then Drakari triple. So you take the stats from the shop, you double them, and then Drakari, it triggers 3 times. Now, it does require you to have a sort of homogeneous type buff where the whole shop is big. Because if you have a Drakari and an Enforcer and only 1 minion is big, let's say by doing rightmost buffs, it's not that good because then the Drakari is like, okay, well, you eat the big guy and like 2 guys that are 5/5s. You don't really care. So specific, or you could just run it without Drakari if you have a big rightmost minion and then just use it like this. That's also okay. Then we have the big copper coil. So now it increases with +2/+2. Still not really a fan. I might just be underestimating this, but I don't really see how you farm this up fast enough. We used to do this with Buddy, which is the Elic, which you can farm up a lot faster because it triggers on any minion that has less stats than the Elic. Whereas here you have to play Magnetic Mechs. And you can't even sell them afterwards. You have to magnetize. So it's like way more expensive. At least with the Elic, you can play the minion, sell the minion. So yeah, I mean, I might be missing something here. Please let me know in the comments if I am, but this does not feel like it's gonna go fast enough. Radio Star Portrait. You get a Time Warp Radio Star, give it Reborn. That's a lot of fun. I like this. This is fun. Now, again, specific situations. You need to be healthy enough to play this. You preferably want a Titus or 2. And yeah, now you can steal minions and randomly win the game. There's also a very toxic combo that Jeef introduced, or at least that's the first time I saw it, where you can be Sneed and then you have Radio Star stealing minions from your opponent. And then during the combat, Sneed summons those very same minions on the board, so you don't even really lose tempo, assuming you steal big minions. So fun, cool. I'll definitely mess around with this. Thornspike Pauldron. After you trigger a death rattle, your blood gems give an extra 2/1 until next combat. So the keyword here is trigger. You can trigger quite a lot if you have Titus for extra triggers, Macaw for extra triggers, Wind Fury, Reborn. So trigger, 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 trigger. Now, it says until next combat, so I assume that it just drops once you enter the next combat. So you have these buffs during the tavern phase and the combat where they were acquired. Now, the combat where they were acquired is a little tricky because after you've already triggered a lot of death rattles, it's going to be hard to then get blood gem value during the fight, I think. So this seems like we're going to use it more with like buffing, or I guess maybe there's some in-fight buffs where this is good. This is just one of those where I'm gonna have to play with it like once or twice and be like, oh yeah, this is great, or oh, this is awful. It's one of those I just need to get a bit of a feel for. But I wouldn't write it off. I think there's definitely potential here. Blood Amulet is a little bit more clear. This one says, after you trigger a death rattle, this plays a permanent blood gem on 3 random friendly minions. So again, very key here. This says friendly minions, not friendly Quillboar. This can buff your Brand. This can buff your Titus. So we can trigger a lot of death rattles. If we have big gems already, now we're going to have big permanent stats. I like that. I'm not sure if this works with Poets. I don't think so, right? Because this is gems and not just stats. I'm actually unsure. But like Poet could, like Golden Poet, you could basically like double the stats. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, as I was talking, you want to have like your Macaw, your Rylak, and then like Jazzer next to Rylak, Titus, and then just like trigger, buff the gems, buff your board. Seems like fun. Wild Feather Duster, after you summon 6 beasts, get a random beast. So you have to play 5 during the tavern phase, and then you get 1 for free, basically, right? So you get your beast for free, you play it, and then you got to play 5 more, and then you get another beast. So like APM beasts is like not really a thing. So it's mainly for I'm summoning in the combat, and then I get a random beast. And like for a Greater Trinket, having to summon 6 beasts to then get one, I don't know. You know, it's kind of like the Tabby Cat Trinket, really, in the beginning. That's a Lesser Trinket. It's comparable to that, so... yeah, not a huge fan right now. Bang Anklets. Start of a combat, your beasts have +1/+1 this combat. After you summon a beast, improve this. Okay, so this I like more because here we can just summon a bunch during a combat, and now we have permanent golden aura. That seems better. Now, it depends on how big the stats can get on other builds, because this is going to be relatively capped, where you're not going to be gaining +100 to 100 per fight or something, right? Like summoning 100 minions is not happening. So compare that to, say, Acid Rain, collecting a lot of stats in the current meta. You're not going to kill that with, you know, some Goldrin buffs. So these types of interactions, these types of strategies are generally heavily dependent on how big do the other strategies get. If they are in the thousands of stats, these strategies are generally not that strong, not that viable. So we'll have to see what the meta looks like before we can make a proper judgment. Miniature Ship. I can tell I got that wrong in the previous take. After you cast a tavern spell, give your pirates +2/+3. Yeah, there's lots of ways to generate spells. This is nice to stabilize with, I would say. I'm not sure if it's going to be like great scaling for the whole game, but if you have a lot of pirates on the board, and spell generation should be a good way to stop taking damage for a turn or two. Protective Ring, on the other hand, start of combat, give 3 random pirates Divine Shield. Greater Trinket for that? I don't think so. I want to get a little bit more out of my Greater Trinket. Okay, bounties are back. Privateer Portrait. You get a Proud Privateer and 3 random bounties. So yeah, that's spells, right? And it says you cast a tavern spell, and Proud Privateer says you cast your bounties twice. So that's an easy way to cast a lot of tavern spells. Now, bounties, they scale with spell power. So the real strategy with this type of pirate, which is, by the way, one of my favorites, it's super fun to play with, you generate a lot of spell power through the various ways that you can do that in this game with like Felfire Conjurer or like Meditative or whatever. And then you generate a lot of bounties. You have a bounty that gives you gold. You have a bounty that gives you a minion of your most common type. You have a bounty that buffs the leftmost minion. And then you have bounties that do like 3 minions get health, 3 minions get damage. So there's 5 different bounties, kind of like the Chroma Drakes. And if you have Proud Privateer, you trigger them twice, so lots of buffs, lots of money, very fun to play with. Now, if you have a lot of spell power, those AoE buffing bounties, they really start adding stats to your board. So that's the real end game with pirates, which is why I said Miniature Ship is a little bit more just stabilizing, because this doesn't scale with spell power. So the thing that scales will pretty much always be better in the late game than the thing that doesn't scale. I know, shocker. But yeah, very fun. I would say this is going to be a highly picked portrait for me, because I love going into this comp, and very often the Privateer is missing. So yeah, if I have a Rogers on my board and I get this portrait, I'm slamming it. Trusty Crowbar. It's kind of like the purple bounty. It'll just buff the leftmost minion. It says whenever you get a pirate, so I guess we're not gonna have Tethys, because that would be a lot of buffs. Honestly, when you cast the blue bounty, which gives you the minion of your most common type, that also works. So yeah, in the right setup, I could see taking this, just putting a cleave on the left, and then just like buff, 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 buff. Gonna be a pretty big cleave. Powder Keg. Start of combat, give 2 friendly pirates Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Sky Pirate, and give this minion its attack. It attacks immediately. Okay, so you can cook with this. Let me see. So what would you have to do? Mutinous on top of a huge pirate, then like just have 2 big pirates. Titus Macaw or something, right? Because it's a 1/1 and then it gains the minion's attack. So let's say, for, you know, theory crafting sake, you're able to make like a 2000 damage pirate, which honestly, if you're concentrating your stats and you're mutinousing and stuff, not impossible, right? You have a lot of money, 2000s, maybe even a bit low. So you can do like Scallywag comp, summoning 2000s, as long as you can trigger the Death Rattle repeatedly. So Macaw. or like, I don't know, like a Hawk Strider if that's in or whatever. So anything that can trigger the death rattle of a minion, and then Titus, you can actually go like bam, bam, bam. It's like Scallywag comp, but the tokens are 2,000. Now you can't have any other pirates on your board, right? You can only have the two big ones. But yeah, I can see that working. Like a pirate pivot with Powder Keg. You farm like Golden Titus, it's in your hand, and then you just like Macaw Titus and just that seems cool. Now that's elaborate. That's like, oh, I'm gonna take this in like 7 turns from now. I'm gonna be really like, you know, it does give you some tempo if you already have big pirates, right? It's because it gives you some extra damage. But generally speaking, this type of trinket that sets up a combo like that, you have to take it from a position of strength where you're able to tank a few turns to set this up. But I think if you can set this up, it's going to be a YouTube video, chat. So I'm going to try. I'm going to try for that. That seems like a fun little like Exodia, if you will. Jailer sticker, the bigger one. Yeah, I mean, this is the same as a small one. If there's a lot of undead synergy where you can kill stuff in the tavern, then sure. And otherwise, no. It's a bit late, right, for this to be a greater trinket compared to some of the greater trinkets we've seen. So once per turn, I get to get 2 random undead. Like, I don't know. Maybe. It highly depends on what undead are going to do this meta. Beatboxer portrait. Now that is almost not relevant because Beatboxer is almost always amazing. So 2 gold, I get a Beatboxer and 2 mechs. Sign me up. The reason why this is amazing is you can stack. So if you have a Quartertron, you can just play any magnetic, put a Quartertron on that magnetic, triple that magnetic, put it back to your hand, play another magnetic, put the big stack on the small magnetic. The Beatboxer gets all those buffs, all those Quartertrons, and before you know it, you start with like 50 gold, 70 gold, 120 gold at the start of your turn. Very cool, very fun. So yeah, very strong minion Beatboxer. A Quartertron portrait. Oh, I want these 2. Maybe buttons, right? You get these 2. At the end of each turn, magnetizing a Quartertron to your left and rightmost mechs. Fun, but getting it as a greater trinket. Now, I'm in no way implying that this should be a lesser, because that would be broken, but at that stage, starting to add a Quartertrons, it's maybe a little bit too slow. Like you're basically casting 2 oils starting turn 9. Maybe not good enough. So again, play it from a position of strength, play it where you have magnetic synergy. If you're just starting this on turn 9, it's probably going to get you killed. Electrode Attractor. Magnetic mechs cost 1. The tavern offers an extra whenever it's refreshed. I don't think so. Like, again, maybe buttons. If I have Beatboxer, definitely. If I have magnetic coil, maybe, right? Like, but this has to have some serious magnetic synergy behind it. So usually not a big fan of these, but we'll see, right? In the right position, maybe. Maybe it's really very strong in the right position. Magic Fin sticker. Now this is one that doesn't need a lot of context other than, do you have a brand? Then you probably want this. After you buy a tavern spell, you get a 1/1 Murloc and teach it that spell. And you get to do that 3 times per turn. Wow. That's a lot of money, chat. I can pop off with that money. You know, you can even get tempo with this. If you've got some spell power, you buy an Azurite. But yeah, like if you have brand and you buy, say, Discover a Battlecry minion with this, like, oh, so much fun, so much money. The fact that you get 3 per turn and you don't have to keep Magic Fin on your board, right? Because usually you have to keep the Mycologist on your board. Now you just have it as a sticker, which is board space, which is amazing if you're running that type of composition. So yeah, this seems like a lot of fun. Young Merkeye sticker. At the end of each turn, trigger all friendly battle cries. So yeah, these are kind of closely related, I would say. Buttons, right? Buttons, and get these 2 is disgusting. So definitely picking some more buttons this meta, trying to get some cool synergies going. Works with Bran, works with Drukhari, you know, Papa Murgletons, Mama Murgletons, so lots of situations where this would be really good. Murky sticker. At the end of each turn, give your 2 leftmost minions +1/+1, and this improves by battle cries triggered this game. Very similar to what we've covered. You want Drukhari for this, you want Bran for this, and just spam a lot of battle cries, and then sure, it buffs any minion. So you can use that to buff cleaves, you can use that to buff like even a magnetic, and then, you know, you triple that and use it with Beatboxer or something where you get really creative. Yeah, but in this obviously wants synergy, and if you have that synergy, then this is fun. Ramalok sticker. Start of combat, give your Murlocs, not give a Murloc, not give 2 Murlocs. It says give your Murlocs the attack of the highest attack minion in your hand. I mean, in the right setup, this is give poison to your board, right? Which is good. So yeah, if you have a huge minion, if you have been doing a lot of hand buff shenanigans, then yeah, this will make your base skills hit really hard. If you can put any kind of divine shield murlocs on your board, that's great. They hit really hard, so sure, why not? Seems fun. Corrupted Tome. Ooh, this is a cool one. You get a triple prize, which is displayed on the right here. Whenever you would get a triple reward, get a triple prize instead. Now, this one has the option of stealing the whole shop. That's a great outcome. You can also discover a minion from the next tier. And in one of the recent patches, they changed it so you can actually get a 7-drop with that, which made it so much better because it used to be stuck at a 6-drop. Now, if you're on tier 6, you can pull 7-drops with it. So between stealing the whole shop and getting 7-drops, whoo, right? That's a lot of fun. If you can get Zerjira, Stitched, Sanders with this, it's more than worth it. And you can even start doing stuff that you would normally not do, like, you know, play that, you know, any kind of battle cry that would get you minions of the same. Like you can maybe make like golden chroma drakes with this just for triple rewards, well, triple prize rewards. You could triple 1-drops with this, elementals, like you name it, right? And you can force awkward things that normally you wouldn't really care because you just get a 6-drop. But now, instead of a 6-drop, you get a triple prize. So you can really like force triples on certain minions and get a lot of value. So yeah, this seems like a very fun one. It significantly changes how you play the game and opens up some cool stuff. Safety patch. I mean, this is the opposite of cool, but it's MMR. It's MMR, baby. Let's go. If you're losing, you slam the ice block and you say, I hope 3 more guys die before I go. That's what this does. That's what this is for. Sometimes you're gonna have the comeback story, right? Like the epic Rocky music plays and you're just like, I was gonna die, but then I cast ice block and then I popped off and let's go. And that's gonna happen, but most of the time it's like, my game sucks, I take ice block and I hope that, you know, 3 more guys die and I get a top 4 away. Let's go. So sure, you know, it serves that purpose. Kaleidoscope, the big one. Discover a golden tier 7, lock it in your hand for 2 turns. So that's egg, right? But better because you don't have to keep an egg on your board. So that's a trinket you take if you are rocking it already. You gotta be strong because there's 2 turns where other people are pumping your board with their big trinkets and you got nothing, right? So you have to hold off 2 boards of people getting value from the greater trinkets when you're getting nothing. If you can do that, sure, right? But no, that's what you're getting into. 2 turns of nothing and then a big reward, a golden 7, but you have to be able to hold off people that have a greater trinket and are using it to make the board stronger. Chromatic tier. Get 2 random chroma drakes after you play 7 battle cry minions. Repeat this. So chroma drakes are battle cries. So this is basically 5, right? So you play the 2 chroma drakes, then you play 5 more battle cries and you get 2 more. Well, you need Bran. If you got Bran, sure. Probably wants to be the right lobby too. You know, what are good battle cries generally speaking? You want to have your Murlocs in, you want to have your elementals in, probably your pirates, that kind of stuff. So in the lobby where there's lots of battle cries and you got your brand, sure, let's have some fun. Let's just spam a bunch of battle cries, get the chroma drakes. It's also after you play them, not after you buy them. So any battle cries you generate also work, right? So if you play like the battle cry spell, you generate battle cries, all that good jazz. And then here we have the chroma drakes, a little bit of an overview again for you guys. So I talked about this in the intro already, but I definitely am on the lookout for the ones that increase the tavern spell efficiency. And let's see if I can break the game with that, with a Rylak and just farm a bunch of it. Then a golden egg of the endless portraits. You get a golden egg. Sorry, it's a greater one, and then you get a golden egg. Yeah, same as with the kaleidoscope, where I like the small one a lot, because then on turn 8, I get to pop off. With this one, I take it on turn 9, that's turn 11, right? And is it even that good? I choose a gold, so I get a singular golden tier. Like, really? What? Like, wait, how is this? I get a golden 7-drop here. Here, I get 1 golden tier 6 dragon. How is that a thing? No, it's a no for me. I'm sorry. This is just too, like, they have to pay me gold to take this. 0 gold is too expensive. Right? Or not? Maybe not. I don't know, bro. It's just like, that's a 7-drop. That's a 6-drop. It just feels off, you know? Maybe, you know, getting a golden dragon in some cases, but nah, I'm a pass. Cloud Serpent Horn. Avenge 3. Give the attack of your rightmost minion to another friendly dragon. So basically stun Drake, right? Avenge 3, the attack of your rightmost jumps to something else. So yeah, if you have a stun Drake setup, then cool. So yeah, we're gonna want like Poet, Titus, Broodmother, right? So we've done this, we know this, we see what this does. Basically more of that. Pocket Cyclone. Cast Easterly Winds 4 times, and at the start of each turn, cast it twice more. So at start of turn, you can't do any kind of multipliers with Drakari. You need spell power for this, maybe. If you have spell power, a lot of it, sure. But for a Greater Trinket, it's a fast one, right? Because it just immediately casts. So it's 20/20 to 1 minion in the shop. Sure. I don't know. I have to play with this. Baller Portrait. Now that one is super fun. You get a temperature shift after you play 7 elementals. Repeat this. So ballers are elementals. So it's really 5. You play 5 Ellies and then you get a baller spell. That's cool. That's a lot of fun. So if you are playing the baller strategy and you get this offered, it's like a ka-ching moment. Because Elemental, obviously ballers, right? Every time you Chef's Choice an Elemental. So fantastic. Should be super, super fun. And even if you're not on tier 2 playing ballers, I could see myself taking this in the right spot where you have like Bran and you're cycling with Tavern Tempest and recycling the Elemental guy, right? It's just, you know, seems fun. Just like a fun trinket to have. Because it'll just make your board bigger. It'll give you money, right? What's not to like? Upstart Embers, yeah, that's very much a synergy for like the big buffs. So talking about that flaming portrait here, yeah, I mean that's what it does. It just buffs and then you get more value. So cool if you have a big shop. Avalanche Sticker, I can also see this work. If you have a big shop, you sell 5 minions, you get an avalanche. So you get into the rhythm of sell 4 small ones, play a big one, eat it. And if you're playing, you know, a lot of battle cries with Bran or just smaller elementals and you're buffing, that should probably be fun, but you have to be in the right situation already. Again, you need to have a big shop already. You probably already want to have Bran on your board before you take this. Bewitched Ribbon, whenever you cast a spell, give your minions +1/+1 permanently, and then 3/3 while in combat. So that's very, very much a Naga thing where we've seen that they're going to have some in combat casting. We've already seen a 2-drop that does that. So yeah, I mean, if you have the right setup for this, that's honestly like my most common sentence during trinket reveals. It's like, well, if you have the right setup for this, because I don't want to say like, oh, this is great. And then people are like, oh, I'm going to take it and be like, oh, I didn't do anything. Well, did you have any buffs in combat? Oh, I didn't. It was like, wow, we have identified the problem here. But yeah, same as always, right? If you have the setup for this, you will get a lot of buffs. Groundbreaker Portraits, that seems like a fun one because Groundbreaker suffers from that problem like Urzel. You've got one huge Groundbreaker and then nothing else. So this will also give the stats to the minion to the left. Now you can have double Groundbreaker on the board, buffing 2 extra things. So again, think Divine Shield, think Cleave, think anything that like doubles its stats somehow if you have any cool synergy. So yeah, if you have a lot of spells cast, and you have the economy, you can cycle the Nagas. Essentially, Groundbreaker usually goes paired with the Dark Crest. That was a Naga that has like Spellcraft, create a Naga. If you have that type of synergy, this should be very fun. So yeah, seems like a fun trinket to take. And then we have Coral Spear. Whenever you cast a Spellcraft, cast the Might of Stormwind. So this is essentially exclusive to boards that have a lot of spell power, because Might of Stormwind is not that good. But if you have a lot of spell power, it's like, you know, it's like a budget shiny ring. You buff the majority of your board, that's okay. So yeah, if you have spell power, sure, let's go. Warband Whistle, man, this looks fun. You get a free refresh that contains plain copies of minions in your warband. So for 2 gold, you roll for 0, and then it's basically like Wisdom Ball. So you get guaranteed Wisdom Ball that copies your board. Well, if that is the thing that gets you to Golden Brand, snap it. if it gets you a bunch of triples, like if it makes your board amazing, then yeah. It's one of those neutral trinkets that I'm guessing I'm going to be buying quite often because it is not that situational. It is quite rare, actually, that you're like, you know what? I really don't want more of the minions that I already have. You know, it could happen, right? Something's like, oh, these guys are terrible. Right? But most of the time you're like, you know what, copying my board sounds pretty good, let's just do that. So for 2 gold, Wisdom Ball, you know it's going to be the one that copies your board. That seems fun. Okay, cool. And then we have transcribing typewriter. You get an extra copy of the next 4 minions you buy. Again, those neutral trinkets that are almost universally pickable, where, you know, you probably want to have some indication here, like, oh, I have a brand, so if I find a brand, it's golden. If I get a Titus, it's golden. Drakari, right? It's going to be very good at tripling those, but also 6 drops, other 5 drops that are just go well into your comp. Now, you do have to roll quite a bit to then find the minion, so you do want to have economy, or ideally, it's in the shop when this thing appears. Now, I can't remember. You can see your shop, right? Yeah, it's not like Time Warp. With trinkets, you can just hide them and see the shop. So yeah, if you already have a good hit for this, I would say just go for it and then try to get good value out of the next 3. But if you already have enough value out of, let's say, the first 2, I wouldn't be like, oh, I have to make this 3rd and 4th one worth it. I think, you know, if you have your golden brand or whatever, just like copy some battle cries, it's okay, right? You don't have to like full squeeze perfect value out of this. And then, like with the lesser trinkets, we also have a bunch of greater trinkets that are returning as before. I'm going to cover them quickly, but give you some tips and tricks on the ones if you were not in the previous trinket meta. Riveneer Portrait. You get a Titus and it doubles health of your Titus. You just take this when you need a Titus. Nothing fancy about this, really. Ironforge Anvil. Now, this one is cool. Triple the stats of your minions with no type. Fun with gems. You can use gems here to make big neutrals and then triple the stats. So that's something to be on the lookout for. Very fun to do. Butcher's Sickle was nerfed, where it used to give you a butchering and an undead to kill. Now you just get a butchering. But if you have a setup where you can generate some undead, or if you're already on tier 6 and you just buy a tier 6 undead, this is still quite decent. You get very high damage undead, and likely we're going to have some synergy to kill off your undead. So if you're leaning undead, not a bad pick. Calligraphy set, very specific. You have to be able to proc the Avenge, but I would say if you can get 2 Avenges per turn, this is not bad. Again, you have to be leaning Quill. You have to have a way to actually use the gems. If you do, then sure, you can pick this. Brand Portraits, good. What else to talk about? You get a brand. All right, so the fun thing here as well is that it's a Murloc and a Dragon, so it's kind of hard to buff neutrals. Not so much if it's a Murloc or a Dragon, so you can use that to get a big brand. But honestly, quite often, I just take this because I want brand, and I don't care that it's a Murloc or a Dragon. So yeah, not a bad portrait, if you ask me. Book of Medivh. Oh, this is the one, right? So I guess the lesser one's not coming back, but this one was really good as a lesser one and also good as a greater one. You get to discover 2 tavern spells, and at the start of each turn, discover 2 more. Neutral, nothing wrong with taking a good neutral. As I mentioned before, a lot of trinkets are highly specific, so these neutrals can really help you out with your selection if you don't meet any of the other criteria. Lorewalker Scroll, gems, spellcrafts, very good to make one huge dude, but overall, it's more of a, I'm going for top 4 kind of trinket. It's not going to make massive boards most of the time, but you use this, you make 1 or 2 big guys, like a big cleave, you try to shield it somehow, and then you play some scam. That's usually what this comes down to. Colorful Compass, so this says Naga, but that's just a placeholder. This can be any type, so get 2 random beasts or mechs or whatever, and at the start of each turn you get 2 more. Perfectly fine, right? This is gonna be at least decent. You're getting 2 of your type. You can use that for money, you can use that for triples, especially if you have something like, let's say, Urzels on your board and you get 2 demons, you can use those to trigger your Urzels, and there's other synergies like that as well. Groundbreaker, getting Nagas, for instance. Tiger Carving. Whenever a friendly minion takes damage, give a random friendly minion +4 attack permanently. This is actually kind of okay if you have a lot of the self-damage set up. So I used to not really like this too much, but it can really save your game where you suddenly have very high damage beasts. So again, not like insane you win the game, but you can sort of save your game if you're not in a good spot, and all of a sudden use this to get like huge attack on your board, and now you're either winning or tying a lot of your fights. Azurite Portrait. You get a living Azurite, and your Azurites also give stats to friendly elementals. And an Azurite is whenever you cast a tavern spell, elementals in the tavern get +1/+1 this game. This is actually very specific for duos where you would play this and one person would stay on a low tier and the other person would just feed Azurite and spells. And then the person on the low tier just cycles a bunch of spells like Careful Investment and Overconfidence and such. So quite fun to do that strategy. And in general, if you have the right setup for it, it's not bad. I've had like 1 or 2 like very memorable games where I went for this portrait and it was very fun to do. Designer Eye Patch. You are now You have pilfered lamps for pirates. Again, that makes for very memorable games, but you have to be in a very specific spot, right? Preferably 1 or 2 pirate pairs on your board when this pops in the shop. So for 7 gold, that's a big investment. You want to get some return pretty quickly to try and stabilize. Blood Golem sticker. Now this can be nasty. Whenever a friendly quill board dies, summon a golem with stats equal to the blood gems. So you can have 2 or 3 huge quill board, and they're kind of scam proof because when they get killed, they summon another big golem. Now, can you have that much scam that you can get rid of it? Sure, but most of the time having 2 or 3 of these guys with death rattles kind of shuts it down. So it's all about gem transferring to, you know, some big minions, some big quill board, and then just letting the trinket do the rest. Slamma sticker. After you summon a beast in combat, double its attack. It got changed, so this now says after you summon a beast in combat, double its attack, not double the stats. That's a huge nerf, but it's also understandable because Banana Slamma was so toxic. You would just have a bunch of Banana Slammas in the back, and then you would summon something. It would just be like ×2, ×3, ×2, buff. And anything that gets buffed like that is just crazy good. It's kind of like Drama Lock, where they changed Drama Lock from stats to just attack, because Drama Lock was also just way too good. So understandable, but it also just makes it not that fun to play. Same as Drama Lock, like it saw no play when it got changed to attack. Basically no play, so I don't know. Beasts are a little bit better with just gaining attack on tokens and stuff, I suppose, right? Not gonna write it off completely, but definitely not as much fun. Nether Pendant, sure. Gotta have salve damage for this. Thank you. I know, those are great insights by your favorite streamer. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these are just like, okay, we know what they do. You can buff the tavern with this, sure. Nomi sticker. Yeah, if you want Nomi, you can get this. We also know what Nomi does. Bridge Magnet, Avenge 3, get a magnetic. If you somehow have Beatboxer, yes. If not, not the biggest fan of this. And then Jar of Gems is more of a just tempo tool. If you have some big gems, you can use this to try and survive, but generally not the winning trinket to take. Comfy Coffin, sure. If you have a bunch of Tavern Spell Generation, this is more than fine. Get some big undead. Glow Scale Portrait. So this got changed a bit because you now get Time Warp Glow Scale, which means that you get a permanent shield. I think this already gave a permanent shield, but this is like a more elegant solution. There's less text here. They just say you get a Time Warp. But it also, whenever you cast a Spellcraft, it gives your minions with Divine Shield +3/+3. That's a nice little bonus. So this is also really good if you want to play Scam, because you can shield a lot of your Scam with this and just have some nasty, nasty boards. Surprise Portrait, that one is great. This is just, these are things that Blizzard does really well, like the Battlegrounds team does really well. It's just like very flavorful. Get an Elemental of Surprise. More appear when you least expect them. So yeah, so sometimes you roll a shop and then the whole shop gets replaced with Elemental of Surprise. Oftentimes when you're about to triple something, it just like changes into an Elemental of Surprise. I don't think it like targets triples, but you just remember that. Because I had that one time where it's like a golden brand was going to happen and then like, oh, golden, now it's turning into Elemental Surprise, stop it. Generally speaking, good trinket. Because it just means you're going to get a board of tripled Divine Shield Elementals. Not bad. So yeah, randomly one can just enter your hand. Your shop could be full of Elemental of Surprises all of a sudden. So yeah, on average, pretty damn good. The Eye of Sargeras. Every 4th card you buy costs health instead of gold. So yeah, that's with all these types of trinkets. You probably want Malchezaar. You probably want to have Rewinder. Well, you need Rewinder for this. Or any type of damage reduction. And then this is quite nice to set up APM stuff. You can do stuff like buy Overconfidence and Careful Investment. And then when it's the 4th card, you buy like a big minion or a big spell for value. So it goes really well with Brand too. Shaker Portrait. If you got deep blue, that's good. You get more deep blue. Manipulator, quite good. You know, you just copy a minion. You can hold this if you're really strong, but most of the time you're just going to take this, copy something right away, either to make a golden key unit, so like a golden 5 or a golden 6, or you just have a big guy and copy the big guy to stabilize. So those are like the 2 most common uses of this. Cheese Wheel, that just buffs the shop. Generally not that good, but it only costs 2 now. You have to refresh a lot. Yeah, I have to play with this again. I can't remember if at 2 gold I would want this. Reinforced Shields. Yeah, this I don't love either. It's whenever you summon a minion, give a Divine Shield. So yeah, this is basically if you're already hard committed into beasts or undead with high attack, you now summon high attack shielded minions. So maybe with Banana Slammer, you summon very high attack shielded beasts. That could work. Dragonwing Glider is just tempo whenever you play a card. So that's a spell, that's a blood gem, that's a spellcraft, I think so. I think everything's card. You just buff. So just pure tempo. Probably not going to win you the game, but it's good to stabilize. Nurglish Phrasebook, very good to buff leftmost. So pretty much something you take if you're already locked into doing hand buffing. And Postcard, man, this one costs 6 and it might look a little underwhelming at first glance, but it is generally crazy. So this is highly dependent on the spellcraft pool, but if there is any type of spellcraft that can give you some value, this is great. Because you will just use the value to get more Nagas, to then get more spellcrafts, to then get more Nagas, to then get more spellcrafts, to then get more Nagas. So if any type of synergy here, this is generally a very fun and high APM trinket to take. And we got Spite Scale Sushi Roll. You get a Spite Scale special, and your first 2 spellcrafts each turn cast an extra time. That's essentially just deep blue for the most part, where if you have a deep blue setup, you can take advantage of this. Booty Bay Brew. Yeah, if you have an APM pirate setup, you can use this to try and stabilize. Other than that, you know, doesn't really matter. Mega Jiraxis sticker. So Mega Jiraxis is a tier 6 with a battle cry. You get one of 3 magnetics. It's Reborn, Wind Fury, or Taunt, and it has some stats on it. So that's what you're getting with this. This is almost never that exciting, honestly. Oh, Surveyor Portraits. You get a Hot Air Surveyor, and Blood Gems played from your hands give an extra 4/4. So this is actually quite nice. Whenever you have something that really loves just condensing the stats, Hot Air Surveyor is great for that. So we had Bristler at one time that worked really well. Again, you can put it on Cleave, like Corrupted Myrmidon was also like a fun target for this. So yeah, this is, you know, look for your board to see if there's anything that really benefits from that. Surprisingly good. Redeemer Portrait, you get a Nala, and your Nalas give an extra 2/2. Sure, I mean, if you have spell generation and Nala on your board, go for it. Lava Lamp, after you sell 4 minions, get a random elemental. That's fun. Yeah, that's like good APM type stuff. Yeah, in the right setup with the brand, you can pop off with this. Peace Bloom, one of those neutral, okay-ish trinkets. I don't love this one because it doesn't just give you the value. I like the other trinket more where you just discover 2 of them, because with Peace Bloom, you have to always like roll and then, is this one good to buy or not? And then you buy 2 and the next one is Golden Touch and like, I should have waited, right? It's a bit of an annoying trinket, but I take it still sometimes because it's neutral. It's always going to give you some value, so pickable but not ideal, I would say. Balladist Portrait. This one is fun because you make triples with this. So you play the first Lovesick, start of turn you get another one. So you basically just end your turn with 2 Lovesick Balladists on the board, and then at the start of the next turn, a triples goes to your hand. Preferably you already have Bran on the board. You can use this to pump a Cleave. Good times. Great Boar Sticker. Yeah, this is when you're desperate. It's like, I need any type of buff on my blood gems. Cool, I guess I'll take it. But you're never excited to take this. Urn, same thing. It's like, oh, I'm dying, I have undead, I guess I'll just take the tempo, but you're not excited. Fishing Rod on the other one is very exciting. This is very, very fun. You get a random tier 7, and at the start of each turn you get another. Well, that does exactly what it says it does. That is just, you know, you get tier 7s, and it's fun, and it's cool. So, obviously RNG, you might get bad ones 2 turns in a row, and then it's rough. Or you might get one of the great ones, and then life is great. Bronze Timepiece is like a Vol'jin trinket. Start of combat, give each of your minions health equal to half its attack. This used to be full attack, but then it was way too good with Poet and Vol'jin and stuff, so yeah, but still nice on Vol'jin. Tip Jar, another neutral trinket that I pick all the time, because sometimes you just look at the options, you're like, these 3 are kind of whatever, this is extra money, I'll take the money. I take the oil trinket, big shocker, right? Fancy Spellbook, after spend 7 gold, you cast a Shiny Ring. Yeah, if you have a lot of spell buffs, that's totally fine. You can just APM it up, play APM Pirate, have a lot of spell buffs, pop, 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 spend the money, buff the boards. That's fun. Divine Signet, after a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, you get a random Tavern spell. It's okay. Like Zarina, basically. It's like a setup for Zarina. Boom's Monster Portrait. You get a Dr. Boom's Monster, and at the start of every 2 turns, you get another. So you can also use this to triple. So what chat loves to point out is you can reborn this, and it's true. And with this trinket, you could actually do that because you could play Boom's Monster, reborn it, put it on your board, and then whenever they kill your Boom's Monster, it reborns, and it still has the stats because it's an aura buff. But generally speaking, this is just much better if you put it on a Deflectobot or, you know, any type of other good Divine Shield magnetic and get value that way because you keep extra board space, and buffing a Deflectobot is basically like getting the value twice or 3 times, however many times it resets anyway. All-purpose kibble, whenever a friendly beast attacks, give it +2 and improve this. Surprisingly decent. And the right setup, this can get quite big. Now, this suffers from the same problem as I talked about earlier with the beast trinket. If you are in a meta where people just print giant numbers, it's not good enough. So, depends a bit on the power spike, depends on the power level. If people just print thousands of stats, I mean, what are you gonna do with this? Doesn't really matter, right? Gilded Anchor, I don't like this. I can't remember taking this ever. At the end of turn, give your golden minions instant, and yeah, I mean, even with a Drakari, it's just, you know, not good enough. Shark Cannon, sure, it's one of the greedier picks, but if you are APM Pirates, if you have a good board and you can afford to start slow, then sure. You spend a lot of gold, you give your pirates the buff, and then, but you have to be fast with this, you have to have a really good setup, so tricky, greedy trinket that can be great in the right circumstance. Wicked Tome, also surprisingly good. Avenge 4, your tavern spells give an extra 1/1. There's lots of payoffs for spell buffing, so if you have a good Avenge board, you can use this for any type of payoff, honestly, like every tavern spell. Turbocharged Drill, you get 5 different magnetic mechs of any tier. I never really liked this one. It's like a one and done kind of thing. You get 5 magnetics and then you're just like, oh, that was it. So not a huge fan. Now we have Zarina Portrait. This one's really solid. You get a Zarina, your charging Zarinas also give health. If you already have a Zarina on the board and any kind of tavern spell generation, this is just fantastic. It's like crazy good for your MMR. It's not always going to win the lobby, but quite often you just get a second place for free. Because Zarina has this thing where you can get ludicrous attack very quickly, but then you're very vulnerable to beasts or any kind of undead tokens because you have no health, and this solves that problem. So yeah, solid trinket. Agam Sticker. At the end of your turn, displays 4 gems on a friendly minion of each type. Drakari, gem buffs, right? Other than that, don't even try. Lavish Cape. Cast a random tavern spell for each different friendly minion. This is like weird. It's like it's awkward because you might have some menagerie on your board, but then you generally are going to move to a board that has more of the same type. So unless you're hard committing to something like Nala, I would not really like this. Base skill Portrait gives Divine Shield to the minions, the Murlocs you summon. That's okay. Generally not really worth a Greater Trinket, but in a specific scam setup, maybe. Herald Sticker, start of combat, trigger all friendly death rattles. Now that's a fun one. I mean, just lots of uses for this. Yeah, Titus, any kind of death rattle setup, very fun. Portable Factory, pickable, can be amazing, can be a whiff. It's one of those higher risk, higher reward types of trinkets, but I've definitely taken this. So it's usually in the right setup where I look at my deck tracker and I see, okay, how many good options do I have here? And if I have quite a few good hits, I tend to just go for it because it is a discovery. It's not random. So you do have that upside. Innkeeper's Hearth, you get 2 6-drops, you set their stats to 20/20. It's one of those, I'm kind of in trouble and I need to get a payoff right away. I don't like taking it, but I will sometimes. Because it is kind of sad to pick your Greater Trinket and it's just like, oh, you get 2 6-drops and it's done. So there's a lot more, way more fun, higher cap Greater Trinkets. So try to avoid it, but you can't always. Sometimes just like, well, you know what? If I just get, you know, insert specific 6-drop here, I'm totally fine. Right? Let's say I have a perfect Evoker board. All you need is the Evoker. You're like, okay, let me just try to get Evoker like this. You know, same thing with like Pirates. Like, oh, I just need a Rogers here. Can I get a Rogers? And this could be your trinket. Fairy Dragon Scale. Whenever a friendly dragon attacks, give it Divine Shields. Never been a fan of this. It also costs 6, so yeah, not a big fan of this one. Poet Portrait was changed to give you a Time Warp Poet. I think this used to give you like Poet and Promo Drake and stuff. But yeah, this is way better. So big fan of this because yeah, quite often you're in a position where you just want a Poet and the only thing better than a Poet is a Time Warp Poet. So now all your dragons get to keep the buffs. Perfect if you already have your Evoker set up. Guiding Candle, another one of those neutral trinkets you take all the time. Your first 2 refreshes are 6 drops. So yeah, that gives you an amazing setup. There's a small downside that once your comp is complete, you don't really want to roll 6s, and the first 2 rolls are a bit annoying to get through. But hey, that means your board is so good you don't need 6 drops anymore, which is fine, you know? So it's like, it's a downside, but you're already doing really well if it becomes a downside. So fantastic trinket to take. I took it all the time in the previous trinket meta. Ghastly sticker, totally fine if you have an end of turn board. I remember reviewing like a crazy game where someone had 2 of these because there used to be a trinket that would copy your Greater Trinkets, and then like Golden Drakari and then like 5 end of turn. So yeah, if you have an end of turn board, absolutely. Stacks with Drakari, you can, you know, add this. Heart of the Forest, this was changed. Your tavern spells give an extra 1/1. After you cast 5 tavern spells from hand, improve this. Unless I can't remember the last patch they did on this one, but I think this used to be just like a static amount, or it would maybe improve end of turn or something. But casting 5 tavern spells is totally doable. So if you are playing APM Pirates, for instance, you're going to play a ton of bounties and get a lot of spell power. So perfect trinket for that situation. Anytime something is uncapped, if it's like, oh, it's end of turn, or you only get like a very specific amount, it's generally too slow. But this is uncapped, where if you're having a great game and you have a lot of resources, you can proc this multiple times per turn. That's definitely the type of stuff we want. So huge buff for this one. Very fun if you have that APM setup. Curator sticker, solid tempo. It's not the dream pick, but it'll keep you alive. You put a lot of buffs on the Amalgam, the Mishmash also gets the buffs. You can use Eyes of the Earth Mother on the Mishmash, so that makes it gain twice as many stats. So solid pick in a lot of situations where you need to stabilize. Here's the big Bloodbound earrings, same as a small one. It works with gems. If you have gem buffs, if you got a setup for it, pretty good. Unholy Sanctum. After you trigger a death rattle, give your rightmost minion 6/4 permanently. So there used to be a play here where you could get a ton of death rattles on one minion with like a mech called Replicating Menace. And you would just put like 20 menaces on one minion and then macaw and trigger the menace. I don't think we have anything like this right now, so I don't think this is like super strong. Recycling sticker is like a high risk, high reward pick. It only costs 0, but you're getting no tempo. So this is one of those, you need to have Bran, play Elementals, play Tavern Tempests. That's the kind of setup where if you can't do that, this is not worth it. If you can do that and you're fast enough to use the money, it's fantastic. But tricky, high risk, high reward kind of trinket. Know what you're getting into. Gold-plated compass was buffed, where you gain 5 free refreshes, and then the next minion of whatever type the compass is, you get it golden. So here it says Naga, but this could roll mech, this could roll dragon. Generally, it's going to look at your most common type and then just say, you know, if you're beasts, the next beast you buy is golden. But you now get 5 free refreshes on top, which does make it better. Again, one of those picks where you'll do it if you're more desperate, because it's over this one and done kind of thing. Or if you know that there is already a minion of the type in the shop where you say, man, if I could just golden that, it'd be worth it. Sure, take it then. Charming Panpipes. At the end of each turn, give your leftmost minion +1/+1. After you cast a spell, improve this. This with Drakari can have some cool setups, but definitely a lot of work, right? You have to be very fast, a lot of APM, cycle a ton of spells, try to make Golden Drakari, put like a cleave in the far left. If you can meet all those conditions, sure, then it's fun. Morgul Portrait. Ah! You get a Morgul. Okay. It does what it says it does. It's one of those cards I don't like because Morgul punishes you for playing a good game. So it is my usual explanation for why I don't like Morgul. Scam, I'm okay with. Leroy is like, okay, my big guy died for free. It sucks, but you know, maybe I can play around it. Maybe I could have positioned better. Morgul, it's like, oh, you have a big minion? Nope. I take those stats now, right? So like, yeah, you get punished for making a big minion. That's horrible. That's a horrible feeling as a player, right? I'd be like, oh, you did a really good job making a big minion, idiot. It's like, I'm taking those stats. And it's sometimes it's also so random where, you know, even though you position to try and not get more gold, you still end up getting more gold. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this, but it's strong for exactly the reason I mentioned. You can get like 5,000 stats in one hit. It's pretty good. And especially it's so annoying if you're in a 1v1 and they steal your stats and then you beat them, but you don't kill them. And then next turn they just put the 5,000 minion on the board and you're like, well, I guess I lose now because you got a 5k minion for free. So frustrating card. Now we have Behemoth Portraits, which, you know, can be really good with Avalanche. You can throw a lot of stats around. you know, get a big increase. So if you have the right setup for that with avalanches, fantastic unit. And then we have 4 more duos trinkets. Now, I don't play a ton of duos, but I'll give you guys a quick little take regardless, but just know to take it with a bit of a bigger grain of salt than usual. I think this is slightly too slow, the Cho'Gall sticker, where on turn 9, if you're done farming triple rewards, I think you already want to have your direction slightly earlier, but I could be wrong on that again. Maybe for the average game, it's okay, but the higher MMR duo games I saw, they were pretty damn fast in getting their engine online. So getting the engine only online turn 9 felt slightly too slow. Magic Road Sign. After you sell your first minion each turn, pass it. More passes, pretty good, especially if you have like Beatboxer and you can sell your magnetic stack to pass it an extra time like that. Very nice. Move out box. This one is so situational, but if you are the support, usually there's a support and a person that's building a board early. So if the support gets this, it's kind of broken because you just skip your turn, you let your carry just build as good of a board as possible, and then end of turn you just get a copy. So feels pretty unfair if a support gets this at the right time. And then we have Empowered Mirror. Become a copy of your teammate's Greater Trinkets, which again is exactly what it sounds like. If your opponent, if your opponent, I guess sometimes their opponents, if your duo has a great trinket, then just copy that. Now we're going to be taking a look at all the minions that were removed, returned, or have been changed. We'll be starting with the removed cards. I'm not going to pay that much attention to every single card, just the ones that I think are going to impact the game the most. Out of this list, Arcadus was a really nice battle cry to play with Bran, and Atrocity had some purpose with anti-scam, but everything else is sort of more just generic tempo or a little bit of value. Then here, Fellhorn, that's a big one. The current meta, it's all about Shimmermoth and buffing it even after the nerf, so that's a big one. We're going to have the Beetle package rotating out. You see that here. We're also losing the Shimmermoth, of course. New Zhao is a huge minion to lose. This is a very important minion because of the Scarab, where you can reborn Wind Fury. You can have a golden Wind Fury New Zhao, which really shuts down a lot of combo builds. You can think of Leapers, for instance, anything that relies on the Titus. It's great at killing Leroys and stuff, scam. So yeah, that's a big minion to lose. Burrower also definitely want to mention that. Very good minion to triple into early and then commit to that composition. So yeah, that's a big overhaul for Beast. Then for demons, no more Urzel. We see Urzel kind of coming in and out depending on what minion they have to eat the shop with. So they'll probably be replaced by something else. Felbor, same deal. No more Silent Enforcer. So yeah, taking out the Lord of Ruins package. That's, you know, we just need to do that, make some space for all the new stuff. I'll probably be back at some point later. And then for dragons, we see that we were losing some more generic stuff like Twilight Watcher, Spirit Drake, but then also Burgeoning Whelp, which was definitely a build you could do in the current season. And then the big one here is losing Stunt Drake. So yeah, that's a huge one. That was super common on high MMR end games, where you either just use Evoker to make this big, or you just mutinous all your units on top of Stunt Drake and have a huge Stunt Drake. So that's nice, getting a big change in that end game. Oh, and then this guy. I never buy this guy. And then we have some elemental cards being removed. This is a big one. We're losing Nomi. No! Only just getting buffed to be just ruthlessly removed afterwards. Acid Rain here is the big one. Yeah, I mean, Acid Rain was dominant. Just dominant. Almost start to finish this season, and in no small part due to Rylak using the elemental buffer and the free rerolls with Rylak. Just makes for insane Acid Rain games. I've had multiple Acid Rains that were, you know, like 50,000, 70,000, 100,000 stats. Just nasty buffs. So yeah, good to see that go. Was pretty dominant and make some room for other playstyles. And for mechs, we're going to see the Volumizer package rotating out. Not a bad first run for this. Was a little rocky, came in at Magnetize 3, was broken, then Magnetize 2, still broken. Magnetize 1, not great, but with the new metal dispenser, also adding extra volumizers, it was actually decent. So took a little bit to get to the right power level, but it seems like magnetizing 1 volumizer on Apex is enough. Metal dispenser out, yeah, that makes sense. Volumizers are out, so yeah, this is just the volumizer package rotating out. And then Photobomber gone as well. So that's good for combo builds. We see Photobomber out. We see Nuzao out. Yeah, that was really like a terror. If you were playing Undead and you saw Mechs and Beasts, you were like, oh my god, I'm getting bombed. So yeah, good news for all the combo or token builds. Then for the Murlocs, the big one here is young Murkai. That's a pretty iconic Murloc, the end of turn with Bran and Drakari, so no more Magic Fin, or at least not with Murkai. Maybe if you have some other form of triggering, like Trinket or something like that, but yeah, Magic Fin definitely going to be a lot harder to assemble now. And then we also see base skill out. That is huge. Honestly, I'm so used to playing with base skills, so I don't really mind it when it's in, but it's a little tedious because every time you have a good end game and Murlocs are in, you're essentially saying, how can I fit as many base skills in my hand as possible so that I can avoid getting scammed by my opponent also playing base skills and Venoms. It's really just like, who can build the better clown car? You're just having a bit of a duel there. So I'm so used to it right now, I don't mind it too much, but it's just a tedious extra step, so I don't mind base skill being removed at all either. And then Dramalock out, we just saw it being reworked, but that's sort of just for keeping the end of the season interesting, so totally understandable. Moving into a different package for Murlocs. Then we have some Naga changes, removing the Death Rattle Naga package with the Reborn and the Showy Cyclist. Veteran was some tempo, Matriarch again some tempo. Fauna out, so no more end of turn Fauna Fellbat comp, and then Bluesy Siren losing the blue support, but also Profound Thinker, quite a strong tier 3 Naga being removed. And then Thrasher out, so that's less scam, or at least, you know, in the Naga department, so that's also fun to see. For Pirates, we are losing the Shore Marauder, so stepping away a little bit from that triggering extra times and then buffing the Pirates' abilities. Freebooter out, Plankwalker out, Industrious Deckhand, also really strong mid-game card. No more Tethys, no more Shipment, so we're going to see that being replaced by a different pirate engine. Pirates pretty much always have a way to make money, so don't be worried. We're going to cover that later in this video, what their engine is going to be. Quilboar essentially loses the shop buff package where you play Blood Gem Barrages. So we see we lose Drummer, we lose Trench Fighter. There's also no more Crone for double buffs in the combat. Charlie is out, but you know, nobody's playing Charlie. And then Flapper, which is also, it's so sad, right? This 4-drop gets like way more play than the 6-drop. Yeah, no more Blood Gem Barrage package. And then we see Undead losing Carapace mainly. Embalming Expert's a fun little early game card, but definitely not like a, you know, game definer. Carapace here is the direction that Undead is changing. So now that we know what is out, let's talk about what is in. Kalecgos is back, the goose. So we have the new Chroma Drake mechanic, which gives us a lot of Battlecry dragons, so that makes total sense to have Kalecgos come back in as well. Kalecgos was pretty underpowered last time he was in, so they buffed him to be +2/+2, which is honestly quite a big jump, right? We went from 1/1 to 1/2 to now just +2/2. With the Chroma Drakes, we could see a return to the Kalecgos. It's also honestly one of my favorite ways to scale in the end game, because sometimes there's metas where it's actually not that hard to get multiple Kalecgos on your board, and it's just such a carefree way of buffing. You just have as many Kalecgos on your board as possible, a Bran, and then you just cycle battle cries. That's it. You're just like, woo! You see the board go up. Especially with the new Chroma Drakes, that could be a ton of fun. Skyfin is back, also part of that battle cry setup. Now with the Chroma Drakes, probably not horrible to set up early. Generally speaking, you only really buy this in the shop if you can pair it with a battle cry, or if you have like a pair of Skyfins, and now every battle cry is great. But yeah, it's a 2/4 +1/+1, so getting it as a 3/5 with upside is totally fine. And Pufferquill is back. This is going to be replacing Thrasher as the Naga scam card. This says whenever a spell is played on this, gain Venomous until next turn. I think you can re-Venomous this with the new Naga mechanic where they're casting spells into combat. So we've already seen that new 2-drop Naga that casts spells into combat. So I think if you have your Pufferquill, let's say Venomous and Shield, and it attacks and it loses Venomous, and then you cast a spell on it and you regain Venomous, that could be like a Naga endgame thing to do. Not quite as oppressive as the Taunted Thrasher, because that was just, with D-Blue, you would just get like, okay, Venom, and again a Venom, and again a Venom, and also refresh the shield, which was super, super dumb. This, you know, could be good, but it's got to be a little bit more tedious, not as strong. Holtron, that is going to be very big for Stegadon. That's essentially your must for Stegadon. The Poltron in the back will apply the Stegodon buff to your whole board, which means that if you spawned tokens that didn't have the Stegodon buff yet, the Poltron will just quickly attack, put the buff on them so that the tokens can then continue buffing. And then obviously the tokens are feeding the Avenge of the Poltron. So just very, very strong card in combination with Stegodon. Mana Saber's back, the token support for beasts, same thing for Sewer Rat, yep. Goldren, taking advantage of those tokens. Goldren was also buffed to be an 8/8 last season, and it didn't matter. Now, we did have one of the highest power creep setups where you had access to time warp cards and then also anomalies. That is just going to make your average board so much better because the time warps are injecting value into your game where, you know, let's say you get a time warp Elise, all of a sudden you're rolling golden cards. That's going to make your average board quite a bit better. And then anomalies, you'd be like, oh, the first minion you buy is free, or double header, or, you know, any of these anomalies that makes your board better faster. For those types of metas, Goldren really falls off because there's only so much you can reach with Goldren. And let's say Acid Rain is a good example of something that doesn't really have that cap. Like I said before, if you have like a 50,000 stat Acid Rain, you do not give a shit how much Goldren buffs are on the board, right? So Goldren definitely benefits from a bit more of a slower meta where there's not that much value. So I think at least for the first half of the season where it's going to be just trinkets, power level should come down compared to what we are in right now. And, you know, potentially a return for Goldren for those first 2 months. Leeching Fellhound, this is pretty good if you go 3-on-3, just stabilize a bit faster. There used to be an anomaly where you would start on tier 3 and this was it, and it was so dumb because it was just like whoever rolls Fellhounds is just winning. So you would start on tier 3 with 3 gold, and then someone would roll 2 Fellhounds and they would buy 2 Fellhounds and a minion, and all of a sudden you have 3 minions on your board turn 1. And it was so dumb. Damage cap was also not adjusted back then, I think. So I think you could take 15 on turn 1. And it was, yeah. Let me tell you, that was a different version of the game. This a lot better. So yeah, anyways, Fellhound coming back. Obvious synergy with Solar Winder, of course, right? Floating Watcher, that is the yes. Yeah, if you start with a Wrathweaver on your board and obviously Solar Winder, this is really good stabilization. Malkazar as well loves this card, so yeah, quite good at stabilizing your board, allowing you to not take any damage, and then you can level. Bazaar Dealer, very fun demon to play with. 1 tavern spell each turn costs health instead of gold to buy. This really gets APM demons to the next level, where if you have 2 Bazaar Dealers on your board and you have a brand, you could start buying Battlecry spells for free. You could buy Golden Touch for free. You could get like a Baller spell for free or something. So very fun minion to get early. Again, all of this assumes they have a Soul Rider, of course. Ooh, Lantern Lava. Also a really fun card, but also dangerous. This thing breaks the game. Get a plain copy of the first elemental you sell each turn. So we've seen that there is a trinket that gives you Arcane Behemoth. And that is like an sort of a, you know, I was going to say an auto win. It's an auto win if you're Jeef, right? So if you like perfectly execute it, you just win, because you can use Arcane Behemoth with the 2 Lava Lanterns on the board. You avalanche the Arcane Behemoth. It's the first minion you sell, right? Because avalanche counts as a sell. Now you have 2 Arcane Behemoths on your board. You can play those Arcane Behemoths. Then you can just get a bunch of stats on them by avalanching and selling other elementals. And then the next turn, you just print even more Arcane Behemoths, and so on and so on and so on. So, you know, it just doubles or whatever, quadruples your stats very quickly. But this is also just in general a really good elemental to have on your board. You can use this with Tavern Tempest, you can use this with even Salamental, Ballers. So very good elemental, and very often a core piece of elemental builds. Ultraviolet, right? Good synergy here. You get rewarded for spamming elementals. Lantern Lava allows you to spam elementals. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this before. It's just like an okay minion. There was definitely a meta where this was the elemental endgame, but again, right, we've seen Acid Rain and that just completely took over. But we'll see, with Rain out, maybe we'll have some more room for true ultraviolet endgames again, where you just have a bunch of ultraviolets on your board and you're spamming elementals. Elemental of Surprise, very good. Makes it a lot easier to golden this, makes it a lot easier to golden this. Quite important, so yeah. This is always a huge boost to elementals whenever it's in. Metallic Hunter is really just whatever. You get a pointy arrow, some spell synergy sometimes, right? You get rewarded for casting tavern spells. So you can reborn this. So if you have this golden reborn, you're getting 4 arrows. If you have a Titus, right, you could even get more. So sometimes good if you have spell synergy, but often not really, you know, worth it. Deflectobot, that's sort of the king of mechs, the end game. where if you can make big Deflectobots, it is deceptively strong. So let's say you have charging Zarina and 2 Deflectobots, and you just give these guys lots of attack, and then you put a bunch of mechs on your board with Reborn to reset the shields. Very good. There's also a little thing you can do where you can taunt the Deflectobot and then have a bunch of resets in the front, but that is vulnerable to Leroy, so it's a bit of a gamble you're taking there. But yeah, overall, very solid mechs. Very solid minion if you're playing mech. This is essentially your go-to buff card, right? If you have a way to make a big, like Magnetics, for instance, you generally put him on Deflectobot. Scrap Scraper, fantastic mech to get early. If you get this with Reborn on it, you farm a lot of Magnetics. A Cordotron, right? One of your premium targets with this. It could farm Reborn for itself. So yeah, a lot of fun to get this early on. Very good to triple into this early. Sparkbot. So this gives you Sanctify, which buffs all your shields. So that does work with Serena for like giga damage on your shields, but also works with spell power. Now, I don't know if we have an easy way to generate spell power with mechs. There used to be a rally mech that gave you spell power, and that went well in this build, but I don't think we have that card as well. So yeah, we'll see if there's another way to generate spell power easily, or if you're just going to combo this with Serena. So again, quite good to give this Reborn, like Taunt Reborn. This will give you 4 Tavern spells, which, you know, if you're running Serena, is super good. Anger is back. Yeah, we are going to see that there is also automatons again, so that's just Kangaroo coming back as automaton support. Skipper, some more economy on tier 1. We do like that. That's a lot of fun. This is like maybe the best one drop they've ever made. It's so good. You sell it, you get another tier 1 minion. You know, heroes like Syndragosa, Millhouse, they just love this minion. Even something like a Rafam, where you could start with Skipper, sell the Skipper, and then hero power. Oh, that's so good. Same thing with Maiev. So that's a big boost for these 1 cost or in general economy heroes that just love getting this on turn 1. Winter Finner, yeah, Murloc 2-drop. You have to take a bit of a gamble where you play this and then hope they don't one-shot it and you hold something in your hand. Sometimes you can hold a Winter Finner, and that's really good because now, let's say you get 2 procs on it. Now you all of a sudden have a 6, god, it's a 6, damn it. All right, it's a 6 that you put on your board. They got me, chat, they got me. But yeah, you get the point. It's not bad to get this on turn 3. Murgler's back, so a payoff for hand buff instead of the drama lock. That's fair, keeping the hand buff genre alive. Primitive Painter, after you play a card from tier 3 or below, give your Murlocs 1/2. So this feels like it's never been gone because we had the Time Warp version, but now the regular version's coming back, seeing as, you know, Time Warp's rotating out. Makes sense. Priestess, yes, we've seen some indication that Nagas are going to play heavily around spells that give stats. So sometimes Nagas are a bit more just like Spellcraft or this or that, but we've definitely seen some indications that there is a lot of synergy to try to push spell power, to try to get or even cast spells that give stats. So there's also just like a pretty good 4-drop to get early. If you have a pair of these with like a Humongous or so, it's super solid. Ooh, Darkrest Strategist, one of my favorite Nagas. So when you get this, you can keep it on your board, and then when it's all the way up to tier 6, you're just pulling 6-drop Nagas the whole time. We're going to see that Groundbreaker is back, so that's the obvious synergy. You can get more Groundbreakers. Now, there used to be Silvas. I don't think Silvas is back in, so that does nerf this a little bit, because that would just... If you can make golden Silvas with this, oh, I just love that. I wish Silvas would never rotate out. It's such an incredibly fun Naga to play with. Let me know in the comments if you agree. That's just... I've never had a meta where I'm like, oh, I'm so annoyed that Silvas is in. It's like, no, never. It's just such a fun Naga to play with. Anyway, but something that not everybody knows is if you have a Darkrest Strategist, it also works with Drakari. So if you put Drakari on the board, instead of going from a tier 1 to a tier 2 Naga, it goes from a tier 1 to a tier 3 Naga. Because it says upgrades each turn. That upgrades happens at the end of turn. So it's not super clear, not super specific. So that's why I'm mentioning it here. Definitely totally fine to keep a Drakari on your board for a turn or two to just rush the tier 6s here and then start printing Groundbreakers and, you know, getting a lot of value that way. Then yeah, obviously Groundbreaker, you want to spam a lot of spells. You want to have 1 or 2 of these guys on the board. Get a good flow of Nagas to cycle every turn, and then you just get huge Groundbreakers. Definitely, you know, a fun way to play Nagas, I would say. Can definitely recommend. Busker's back. They're bringing money back. Let's go. We got our Skipper. We got our Busker. Bran loves this change. Very, very fun to buy this on Bran. to get this randomly on Bran. It's like a careful investment, right? We just get 2 extra gold next turn. Super fun with Bran. Bandit, yes, one of the best minions to get early. Believe it or not, this used to be a 3-drop, and I think it was like a 3/4 or better. I can't remember. Maybe a 2/6. I can't remember. It was stupid good. Like by far the best 3-drop when they introduced this, because you know, with rally, especially if you have some bounties to make this stronger, this could attack 2, 3, 4 times in one combat. It's just, you pull ahead so quickly. So yeah, even as a 4-drop, this is phenomenal, right? If you could triple into this early, do it. So good. Very good minion to get early. Rascal, yeah, that's just your regular bounty support, so works well with Bran. You can even have this on the board with a Titus, right? Generate some bounties. Privateer, as we have seen, right? Bounties are coming back, so obviously we're gonna have Privateer. This is really your big piece to hit. So if you have bounty generation, like for instance Bigwig or Rascal on your board, and then hitting Proud Privateer really gets your game to the next level. It really kicks it up a notch. Very fun and good card to have. And obviously Rogers is the pirate engine for this season, or at least, you know, the next 2 months. It's like Tethys, but you get bounties. So what you generally do with this version of pirates is you try to get spell power on your board, because bounties interact with spell power. So like, we'll put the bounties on screen somewhere, right? So you got a bounty that gives you extra health on 3 of your guys. You got extra damage on 3 of your guys. You have a bounty that buffs your leftmost guy. Then you have a bounty that gives you 2 gold, which if you have a golden one of this, it's 6 gold. Oh, so good. And then the blue bounty gives you a minion of your most common type, which is basically pirates. So then the blue bounty can actually triple the Proud Privateer, stuff like that. It's so disgusting how good it is. But yeah, anyways, super fun to play Rogers. Definitely want to just get as much spell power as you can, and then you just like cycle your bounties and you could just play pirates. So I would say this version of pirates is one of the only versions where I felt comfortable just playing pirates and not having to pivot out of it, just because you can continue to keep scaling your scaling by buffing your spell power. Whereas conventional pirates very often are stuck with, I'm only gaining like +4/+4 or something every time I cycle something, and it's not getting better. Whereas bounty pirates, you can get like 50 spell power. And now you're gaining a ludicrous amount every time you cast bounties. So very probably the most fun iteration of pirates, maybe Hogger, right? Hogger was also stupid. So those 2 are probably in my top 3, Rogers and Hogger, that version of pirates. Then Drust is here. I mean, I don't care. If I have Rogers and Privateer, I don't have room on my board for Drust, bro. Maybe I'm missing some. I guess, you know, if you have blue bounties, Drust does go hard, but as I mentioned before, you need a lot of board space because you want to farm spell power as well, and you probably want to have a Bran, and if you're running spell power, you might, you know, even want to run a Drakari to increase the spell power end of turn. So yeah, don't think I'm gonna have room for Drust for very long. Eudora's fun, right? If you get it early, it's a powerhouse. Definitely want Taunt or Macaw, because it's so sad if you have Eudora and then you attack and it's like an Annoyatron, you're like, oh, I lost so much value. So yeah, Taunt, huge for this, or at the very least the Macaw to get the value guaranteed. Sunbacon, yeah, that's just a way to get more gems in your hands. Yeah, this is actually quite a strong 2-drop, by the way. It's a 2/2 that summons 2 more 2/2s with Taunt, and then it gets better if you have any kind of gem buffs. So very solid minion to take on tier 2. Scrapsmith, some synergy here. This spawns taunts. This gets gems every time a taunt dies. You can take it if you have some taunts on your board. So definitely if you have some taunts and like a Prickly Piper already, definitely worth it then. Gem Smuggler's back. Ooh, I've missed this guy, but he also just tends to be oppressive because of Old Merc guy, or Young Merca or whatever, but that one's out, so we're not going to have the end of turn Smuggler. But Rylak I have not seen being removed, so Rylak Gem Smuggler gives you crazy during the combat buffs, because it's that missing piece, right? Because you can play a Rylak, you can have a Jazzer next to Rylak, you can have Macaw and Titus, and that gives you really big gems, but then you still miss like, okay, how do I use these big gems to now make my board stronger? And then Smuggler is a missing piece there, because you're already going to want to run Bran for your Rylak. You're probably already going to run Titus. You're going to have the Battle Cry to make your gems bigger. You're probably going to want to fit Macaw and stuff. And then Gem Smuggler has this awesome text which says play 2 blood gems on all your other minions. So if you have 3 little quills, it specifies buff your Quillbore. This will make your brand big, your tide is big, your macaw and stuff. So very, very, very good card to have next to Rylak. And, you know, unless the game fundamentally changes in some way, this is probably going to be a pretty good build where you're playing your Rylak with Reborn, and then you get a lot of health on your gems with Jazzer, and then you just play a Smuggler later and take advantage of that. Darkgaze Elder, fun card, not quite as oppressive as Smuggler, but fun card. If you have a setup where you have a lot of money, you can then use that money to find stuff like Jazzers and Foodies and buff your gems like that, and then just keep cycling and making your board big. And then later on, you can just use gem transfer to, let's say, make 1 or 2 big guys and tailor your board for the end game. Hot Air Surveyor, also good. Similar to this guy, where you can make a really big guy, but you skip the gem transfer stuff, where you generally play this with, let's say, Prophet of the Boar. You just cycle a bunch. Bacon is also back, right? We saw that earlier. So if you have some gem buffs, this is actually surprisingly good. If you have like a golden one and a regular one of this, you cast like the gems 3 times, so 4 times total. If you have any kind of buffs on your gems, that goes pretty hard on certain minions like shields and cleaves. Bristleblock. So yeah, this is usually okay in certain builds, but it's nothing compared to the Rylak Gem Smuggler builds, because Bristleblock has a harder time to continue scaling. But it's okay on certain boards, I would say. So depending on your setup, also depending on your trinkets, right? There's going to be certain trinkets where all of a sudden Bristleback is pretty good, is pretty solid. A lot of trinket meta is being flexible, seeing at, you know, what do I have for my trinket? How can I make this work? Scarlet Skull is back. That's sort of whatever. It's just an early game undead. Mummifier is another way to add Reborn, because we saw Soul Splitter rotating out. So yeah, Mummifier is that during the combat phase, you can kill this off and make permanent Reborn. Sorry, during the Tavern phase, you can kill this off and get permanent Reborn, and during the combat phase, you just use this for extra tempo. Grave Robber, that's how we kill off the Mummifier. Very fun to play with this. There are definitely some shenanigans with this guy where you can have it like golden, and then you have Rylak, and then during the combat it kills something, and then you get the cards in your hands. But it's weird because you lose tempo because it does kill your undead. So you can do that for like 1 turn and then do something cool by having a bunch of 1 copy of undead, so you can triple stuff with this. Pretty niche, but I've done it a few times. It's very fun, so that's why I'm mentioning it. I've got good memories of playing with this card. And then we have Drustfallen Butcher, which also is a way to kill off your undead in the Tavern phase. Generally not a bad minion if you have the Avenge setup. Butchering adds quite a lot of stats quickly, and if you can use it on useful undeads with a good death rattle, then you're even getting value out of killing those undeads, which means that it's basically a free buff, or you're even getting paid for it. We also have some changed cards. Party Guest is going to go from a 6/6 to a 3/3, but it's going to be a 5-drop, so easier to play, easier to triple, and yeah, you can just run a lot of spell power with this, and then it could actually be a minion you could keep on your board if it's golden with, let's say, a Reborn. Spellfire Conjurer is going to go from a 6 to a 5. That's going to make it a lot easier to get early, which is going to be great news for pirates. We talked about how they really like spell power for the bounties, and this is going to give it. Shadow Dancer going from a 5 to a 4, so we can use eyes on this again. It's a lot easier to get it early. Spellfire is going to be a lower tier, so easier to buff the shop like that. Very nice. Sleepy Supporter being a 4/3, and now it just gives the minion to the right plus 2/2 instead of a friendly dragon. So that even though it goes from 2/3 to 2/2, it is quite a buff, because now you can just buff anything. Quite often when Sleepy Supporter attacked, your dragon got sniped and you got no value, or let's say it survived and it attacks again, but your dragon's already dead. Like this just makes it a lot easier to get a lot more consistent value out of it. Evoker going from a 2/1 to a 1/1. We have seen some support for it already, some spell generation. We've seen that there's that egg that can pull tier 6 dragons, so then if Evoker stays at 2/1, that might be too powerful, so a bit of a preemptive nerf here. Waveling is going to give 4/4, and it's going to go on a random. That's going to be a recurring theme where we are no longer buffing the rightmost, we are just buffing a random minion in the tavern, because Acid Rain is out, so there's no more reason to have it be buffs on the rightmost. Same with Engine Blazer. It is going to be buffed from 7/7 to an 8/8. Again, we no longer have Acid Rain, so it's not quite as oppressive, and it's going to go on a random buff. Air Revenant, now same thing with Easterly Winds. Easterly Winds is going to buff a random minion, but also it casts the Easterly Winds itself instead of putting it in your hand. So that is a distinction where it's a little harder to get extra spell casts now because of that, but way easier to play, let's say APM with this, because you no longer have to pause, cast the spells, keep going. Now the Air Revenant is just going to cast that for you. And, you know, assuming there's no like wonderful animation that takes forever, it should go a lot faster. Cordotron goes from a tier 4 to a tier 3. That's awesome. It was a tier 3 for a very long time. Very fun to get this early. Start raking in the cash. Serena going from 4 to 3. This is a very good tempo mech. Now, we were in a very high power level meta, if you will, with the time warp, with the anomalies. So these cards needed to be buffed to compete. And now that we don't have anomalies on top of another mechanic, power level should come down a bit. So now Zarina comes down. There's also going to be Zarina Portrait, making it a lot better. Junk Jouster is going to be a 6-drop now and gives 6/6 every time you magnetize. It says after you magnetize a minion. So you don't even need to magnetize this guy. Ooh. Okay, I will have to just play with this. This is so different. Like, I don't know how easy it is going to be to farm magnetics because there's going to be no more volumizers. So this is just one of those, like, I'm going to have to just see it, feel it, see how effective it is. But 6/6, that is, you know, that's a nice amount, and you don't have to magnetize a Junk Jouster. If there's any way to do like simultaneous magnetizations, that's gonna be sick, right? If you have Electron, right? The Voltron, if you can get that one. But there might not be a way to do it, because that would be insane, because then you just like AoE buff and it's plus 6/6 every time. Magic Fin is undergoing a very subtle change. It's going from cast to this cast. So why does that matter? It matters for anything that relies on you casting spells. So if you're the one casting the spells, you get credit for certain mechanics. If the minion is the one casting the spells, you don't get the credit. So it's a very, like, for a lot of cases, it's like a fringe case thing, but they might be introducing some kind of mechanics, maybe with like the Nagas, or I'm not sure exactly, but this is just like a minor change that makes the minion cast a spell instead of you. Aviator now just summons the highest attack minion. That's cool. It no longer gives +1/+1, but that's okay. This was mostly just like a fun little thing to pull, let's say, a big cleave from your hand in the later game. I think for the early game, you still prefer the +1/+1 though. So slight nerf early and then a buff later. Deep Blue is going from a tier 4 to a tier 3, but the buff is going from 2/3 to 1/2. Now 2/3 is a very large Deep Blue buff. I think we saw Deep Blue starting out at 1/1 and then maybe 1/2 after that, and then for some, like, a lot of power creep, let's make it a 2/3. But it is a tier 3 now, so it is easier to get early, which makes it way easier to get into Deep Blue, right? Because quite often, if you go 3-on-3 and you take this, that's already really nice because it starts scaling super early. And even just it being a 3-drop means there's more copies of it in the pool, so it's easier to get it early. Zesty goes from a tier 3 to a tier 4, and there's nothing else about it, right? A small slight stat change. So these guys are just trading places, essentially. Gunpowder, man, Gunpowder really just goes from I'm a 3, I'm a 4, I'm a 3, I'm a 4, I'm a 3, I'm a 4, +1 attack, +2 attack, +1 attack. They've done that so often. But yeah, now it's spend 5 gold to give 1 attack on tier 3. Okay, here we go. Jazzer is back to being a tier 3. Makes a lot of sense. If we're going to have access to Rylak plus Smuggler, Jazzer is going to become way better. Weaver, same as the Evoker, +2 attack before. Now it's going to be +1 attack. And then lastly, we have more cards that are returning but are changed. One Amalgam Tour Group is back. This is a very fun minion to play with. Whenever you play a card, give friendly minions of its tier or lower +2/+1. So it used to be 1/1, now it's 2/1. This is probably to keep up a little bit. It's been a while since this card has been in the game, so it probably feels a little underwhelming at just 1/1, because you do have to play high tier minions in order to get the buffs. Like if you don't play a 6-drop, this thing doesn't get buffed, for instance. So it's a lot trickier to buff than, say, the Weaver, where all you got to do is cast a spell, right? A coin would trigger Weaver, whereas for a tour group, that's not the case unless you have 1-drops that you're buffing. Now, this is a very fun card to get early. You can use Grave Robber on this, so very specific, but you can reborn this with a Scarab and then use Grave Robber, and now you got 2. That's a fun little thing to do. This is also something you can do with that Rylak Grave Robber, where you can farm like 5 tour groups in one fight or something silly. If the tour group has reborn, you can kill it off with the Grave Robber, get 2 more, and then kill it off again, get 2 more, and all of a sudden you have like 5 tour groups. Very, very, very specific, but again, good and fun memories about that, so I will share it with you guys, my dear viewers. Blanchy is going to reborn again during the tavern phase, right? So this was changed to only reborn with full healths and enchantments in combat. Now it reborns again with full stats and bonus keywords. So that was changed. I believe it was due to Kel'Thuzad. Kel'Thuzad was a tier 6 minion that it would kill off the minion to the left of it and then summon it again. So essentially what would happen is you would do a mutinous pivot, put all the stats on Blanchy, then play Kel'Thuzad with Drakari, and end of turn you would just kill off the Blanchy, spawn a huge Blanchy because it would reborn with full stats, kill it off again, right, and a golden Drakari, kill it off again. All of a sudden you have this huge Blanchy that then triples, and now you can, you know, kill it off again and so on, and your stats would just go crazy. But seeing as there is no Kel'Thuzad, it can go back to reborning with full stats and keywords during the tavern phase in case you want to, say, play a Grave Robber on it or Butchering. Nightbane going from a tier 5 to a tier 6. This is a pretty toxic minion. It's quite easy to give this lots of damage, and then you can just make your board poisonous, sort of, where you just have giga damage with a golden Titus and Poet. And not a huge fan of this minion, but you know, we have played some metas with it and it was okay. It's just it's very annoying strategy if somebody just has a very high attack Nightbane, because it's an undead and a dragon. It's not that hard. Now luckily it says give 2 different friendly minions this minion's attack. It didn't used to be that way when it was released, so you could actually use one Nightbane to buff another Nightbane, and then you're like, oh, now I have like 2,000 damage on this Nightbane, and now that Nightbane gives this guy like 8,000 damage, and so on and so on. But yeah, this can be reborned. So it's not like insane because it doesn't come back with the damage, but it's still nice to reborn, helps protect your Titus and stuff. So yeah, Poet, Titus, very high damage, annoying comp. Slyraptor is going to be a tier 3 now. Sure, that's not a big deal. Stegadon, we did talk about this one already. Stegadon is back and is going to be +4 attack, so easier to make a higher damage board. Definitely want to have that Mana Saber Poltron combo on your board. Use a Stegadon, preferably with Divine Shield and Wind Fury. Get the combo rolling fast. Beat Avenges to your Poltron in the back. The Poltron attacks, puts the rally back on the board. The Mana Saber tokens attack, and you know, you end up with very high damage beasts all of a sudden. Slamma going from a 5 to a 4, but it is doubling the attack instead of the stats. That's just going to create, like, again, like poisonous beasts type tokens where they just one-shot whatever, because it's going to have such huge attack, but they don't tank anything because they don't have any health. So when they made this change with Drama Lock, where Drama Lock was insane because it also gave health, then they changed it to just damage and nobody was playing it. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same thing with Banana Slamma, but unless you can find a good way to use that attack, essentially have some aura buffs already and then just have the attack be enough, this is like a huge nerf to Banana Slamma. But at least, you know, you can eyes it, and then maybe because of that, you just have such huge attack damage tokens that it doesn't matter. Like, let's say you're spawning sewer rats and they just like one-shot everything they touch. Maybe that's still, you know, good enough if you can just get enough tokens on your board. But you also need to keep the Banana Slammas, right? That's the problem. So let's say you get like 2 golden Banana Slammas on your board, then the rest has to be like, I don't know, like Goldrin to buff, but then, you know, you have to fit your Titus. You can see the board space becomes quite tricky already. Lycondrius is going to be +3/+2. This card was notoriously unplayable. But it was 1/1, and then they buffed it to 2/1 and it was a little bit better. Now it's going to be 3/2. Maybe? I don't know. I'll try it, but yeah, I don't have high hopes for it. Daddy Terragard, on the other hand, was very meta. It's going to be a tier 6 now. Now, I have bad memories on this card, not because of the card itself, but the game was very laggy when this was in, so I really hope that this is no longer the case. There used to be, I think it was a tier 4, tier 5 demon, but that was the guy that buffed your shop when Daddy Terragard was in, and either him or Daddy Terragard just made the game very laggy, so it was like kind of unplayable demon endgames. And not just for the demon player, like the moment somebody had that combo and just was doing well and had a big shop, the whole lobby became unplayable. Kind of like Beatboxer stat with a lot of stacks on it. Yeah, that just makes the whole lobby unplayable. So I hope that's not the case. I hope that's not returning, where you're not going to have any additional lag when this card is being played. Living Azerite is a 5-drop now, but it's going to give +3/+3. Oh my lord. All right. So yeah, they're coming in hot with this. So I'm assuming they've done some playtesting on this, and it was like, this feels underwhelming. Let's buff it a little bit, which is fair because we do have some new tools to buff the tavern. Think of, for instance, Engine Blazer that just gives +8/+8 on a battle cry, which you can farm repeatedly with a Rylak and a Bran and a Titus. So in order to compete with that, they're boosting the buffs of the Azerite quite a bit. Now the Azerite does buff everything, but quite often if you just buff one minion, it's already not too bad. You can buy that for any kind of like, I don't know, avalanche. We saw there was like a trinket that gave you avalanches. So we'll see how this one feels. Automaton is back. It's going to be a 3/4 instead of a 2/4, whatever. Very, very good minion early on if you're Terran, Lich King, or Secret Guy. Secret Guy, you can taunt this and then use the secret that says whenever your minion gets attacked, spawn a 3/3 copy. Because if you didn't find a Reborn on it, you spawn an additional Reborn Automaton. It's like free leveling. It's like free go to tier 5 basically. You're just on tier 5, you can already roll for your Kang or your Titus. Yeah, those heroes really like to play Automaton. Auto Assembler going to tier 3 instead of tier 4. Man, that makes it even easier. This is also disgusting to copy, by the way, or use Terran, obviously, or Lich King. So yeah, this is just good on its own. You do not have to put this on a mech. You can just have this on its own because then you can reborn it, and then it summons an automaton, and then reborn it summons another automaton. Very nice. So this used to be a really good card to buy on tier 4. Now it's going to be a 3-drop, so this is going to be sick, right? Like, yeah. Wow, I'm just looking at this like little in disbelief, be like, oh, okay, so it's a tier 3 and nothing else changed. That's like insane tempo. All right, I'm definitely buying that. Moonsteel Juggernaut. So this was very, very good, but it was in the game at the same time as the dragon that had the battle cry trigger the end of turn of one of your minions. That made Moonsteel way better because you could advance the Moonsteel and just get a bunch of the satellites in your hand, especially if you had Drokari to make the end of turn better, especially if you have Bran to make the battle cry better. So I can see them basically doubling the rates, going from 3/3 to 6/6. So now it should improve in increments of 6/6. So end of turn you get a 6/6, then next turn you get 12/12, then you get an 18/18, etc., etc. It is also a tier 6, so it is harder to get, but without that dragon, you can't really advance it like crazy. So I don't know if that's going to be good enough. We'll have to see with a Drokari, because it doesn't buff all future satellites either. So if you have another Moonsteel Juggernaut after this, that one will start on 6/6, even if you have another one that's already 18/18. But they do triple with each other. And then you can use those, more triple rewards, more Moonsteel Juggernauts, for instance. So we also saw Junk Jouster giving your board 6/6 every time something gets magnetized, so you could use the Moonsteel satellites for that as well. But Gurgle, a 3-drop, my lord. Man, this started out as a 5-drop, a pretty good one too, but it also had Death Rattle. I didn't really play it for the Death Rattle super often, but Gurgle used to be a 5-drop, and now Power Creep hit hard. Gurgle used to be a high-function dignitary. On tier 5, he was respected, he was loved, and now he's some tier 3 battle cry to be thrown away. That's life, man, that's life. All right. Diremuck gets a nice little boost here. So it is going to be a 4-drop instead of a 3-drop, but it gets a very, very nice bit of text that says, when you have space. These are very, very fun little things to add. It's like Terran Hero Power. If Terran Hero Power didn't specify when you have space, it would suck because you just kill something and be like, oh, okay. So if I don't leave board space, I don't resummon it if it's like Reborn or anything. But with Diremuck now, you can start your fight with a full board, and then the moment something dies, assuming it's not the Diremuck, so you do want to have taunt, you get to still summon a minion from your hand. So very nice, makes it much more like a base skill without abusiveness of, oh, I can just put more Diremucks in my hand and pull more Diremucks, because it's a start of combat effect. So if a Diremuck pulls a Diremuck, that second Diremuck will not pull anything afterwards. Whereas with base skill, that did function that way. So it's kind of an elegant solution to that. Like, how do we still have a good summon mechanic without opening up that base skill abuse? So well done, devs. I like that. Athissa goes and buffs all Nagas now. That's fun. This was always a fun card to play, just like spam, 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 spam. Works with gems, works with coins, right? Any spell. So not just tavern spells. Spellcrafts, right? It's just like you just ram spells on the board. And now it'll just buff all the Nagas, which is very fun. So a nice little boost. Now we have Lost City Looter. It's going to be a tier 3 1/1, and you might look at that being like, is that really worth it, putting a 1/1 on my board? And I'm here to tell you, yes, this is a very, very good minion still. because it gives you something every end of turn. So the purple bounty, for instance, gives +6/+6. So if you get that one, now it's a 7/7, which is a lot better than random tier 3 tempo, and it'll still keep giving something end of turn. Now it could also give your board some AoE buffs. It could give you a pirate, like a whole extra pirate from the blue bounty or whatever your most common type is, or 2 gold, right? So fantastic minion, definitely still want this on your board. Then Dual Wield Corsair is going to be a tier 4 instead of a tier 5. This can absolutely stabilize your board, where you can have Dual Wield Corsair and one other pirate. Could be a Cleave, could be a pair of Dual Wield Corsairs, could even be a Lost City Looter. And then every time you spend 5 gold, you get +6/+6 total. So if we transfer that to 1 turn where you spend 10, you're getting +12/+12. Not a bad deal, because you were going to spend that gold anyway. Bristlemane is quite a bit the different minion now. So it is now a taunt with a death rattle. This plays a permanent blood gem on adjacent minions. We have seen that there is a trinket that can already make reborn on gems. So you could give this reborn taunt death rattle. And then if you have some gem buffs already, that's quite fun. So yeah, could be a fun little minion to take if you already have a Prickly Piper on your board. Seems interesting. And then finally, we have Hog Watcher, which gets changed to give you a blood gem that also gives you Quillbore Divine Shield. Just a little bit more elegant, right? Now that they have that mechanic where they allow blood gems to have a different effect on them. So it's going to buff you like a blood gem, but also give you Divine Shield. That just seems nice. That just means you can play it with Bran and hold the gems, and you don't have to shield right away, which used to be a bit of a downside, where if you roll the Hog Watcher, you would have to already shield on the Quillbore, whereas now you can just hold those blood gems for whenever you want to shield something. My god, what a chonker of a patch, and we've only just begun, chat. We are going to talk about all the other types, all the new minions. That is all still coming, so hope you guys are excited for that. As always, with these types of videos, I read every single comment, so if you guys have any feedback, anything I missed, any cool interaction, please let me know, and I'll see you guys in the comments.